Okay, Larry, it's time for the theme song.
Yeah, Bob.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the commentary track for Big River Rescue. Great show.
Yeah.
Yes, Mr. Roberts?
Hello. This is Mr. Roberts, the director of the fine film you're viewing this evening.
And I am, they could watch it any time of day, but this is Chris Wall, the producer. And
Thanks for inviting us into your home.
Thanks for letting us come in.
Can I have one of those cookies?
This is one of those shows that has a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. Every show we make
gets harder and harder.
Not necessarily.
This is the fourth show I've been a director on.
Has challenges, and
every show gets harder.
Well, perhaps.
No, every show gets harder.
I would say we peaked with Larry Boy in its hardness, and then we had Gideon, which went pretty well, not too bad. And then Mo was hard again, so.
So it wasn't that hard. It was pretty easy in comparison.
So we had this show in production, rolling, working along. It was called Huckleberry Larry at the time.
In late 2006.
Yes. And then
that's a long time ago.
Decided based on release schedule and kind of timing that we would instead work on The Wonderful Wizard of Oz and hold this one for a while and come back to it. So we've come back to it, and now it's done, and now you have it, and it's a wonderful show. We're so happy to have it out.
Well, you're speaking of future. Right now it's not out. We still have to finish the DVD
the moment
features.
People hear this, it's out.
Well, what if they have a pre-release copy? You people are
VeggieTales
special.
theme song.
Tell
here.
all your friends.
Great tuba playing, Larry.
Are we ever going to reanimate that?
I don't know. It's like sacred.
I don't know. I feel like maybe we should get fan feedback on whether we should reanimate that.
So this is the countertop that was indeed created by Mr. Brian Roberts.
Well, I had a little idea. I had an idea that since we were doing a story about this great literary work, that it would be okay. Comedy comes out of taking characters and, well, a certain type of comedy comes out of taking characters and putting them into a situation and letting them just play the situation. And so, the situation that I thought would be funny here was our characters, losers they be, in a book club. And like it just kind of wrote itself from there, because obviously none of them would read the book because it's just kind of the way they are. Archie might have gotten the furthest of anyone, but ultimately I think even his attention span is too short. And I know your wife is not a fan of the jokes we make in here about not reading the book.
Well, my wife is one of those, like Mike Naraki. Of course, the story of Huckleberry, Larry, based on Huck Finn, was, Mike brought that to our attention because he just holds that as one of his top literature books of all time. And my wife is similar. It's a very, very important book to her. And so when we take stabs at it here about how they don't want to read it, she wasn't nuts about it.
It makes her hurt inside.
Yes.
Zachary Alexander is the name of my two nephews put together to make a real name. Zachary and Alexander. Isn't that sweet?
So Norm's notes.
Love you guys.
Norm's notes are fantastic resources for quickly getting through them. I read a book similar to these Norm's notes in college to try to get through some plays. We had to read plays, and sometimes when you're stacked up 3 and 4 deep, you just have a hard time tearing through them.
Well, and so I tried to have someone provide context for you as well.
Well, I'll just tell you, they were pretty much worthless for me because you just didn't get enough data. It was all like rough framing, so the experience of whether that was any good or not.
I wrote a paper in, I think, 8th grade about Huckleberry Finn and did not read the book and relied on such a type of book as Norm's notes. And when I got the paper back, I got like an A+ on it, but the teacher's comment was, "Great paper, next time read the book."
Yeah. Oh, you can tell. Yeah, you can tell, right?
You can tell, but the point is, I muddled my way through it so convincingly.
Here is
I got an A+ for great writing anyway.
Here is a fantastic.
But I don't recommend such behavior, children.
This animation.
Do your schoolwork, or you'll end up like me, making cartoons of vegetables.
This is a bit of animation done by John Troush, who
he did a
is
great job.
a designer here at Big Idea. He also always helps. He traditionally helps us out with our credits as well.
Yes.
And
He's been working on his After Effects skills.
Mad skills.
And I thought that would be a great little project for him to take, and he loved doing it.
He did such a great job.
And then, of course, if you've watched the credits, as you all should, always watch the credits. You see the reappearance of Drippy. Yeah, and Drippy is who did the voice of Drippy, Chris?
Some guy in the booth that is messing around with his voice.
By the name of Chris Wall.
Maybe. And what's wonderful is that map ends up being this versatile communication device for us throughout the show, because Clark Wayne, good storyteller, wants to have visual aids for all the children to be able to follow along in his storytelling. And so, kids, I hope you were able to follow along and understand what he was talking about, because he's covering taxes and
MP3 players
and
good old Clark Wayne. Let's talk about George. Hey, George.
Hi, George.
That's George. He was originally in the very first show he was in would have been Rack Shack and Benny. And then he was in The Toy That Saved Christmas, and then he disappeared except for a brief cameo in Jonah, and we dug him back out for this show as we were searching for who our perfect Clark Wayne would be.
He was happy to get to work. He'd been out of work for some time.
I've been out of work for quite some time. Hey, we should put that on as an Easter egg. that test that Phil did.
It's very fun.
Phil did a test of George as Clark Wayne to kind of see if the voice would work well for what Clark Wayne had to do.
There's that lumber camp.
Because the part was not written to be Clark Wayne. I mean, was not written to be George.
Great lumber camp here. Yeah, so with George, what was interesting was we went back and looked at the great narrators of VeggieTales' time. Bob obviously is a big anchor. The French Peas have done some. And then we said, well, Grandpa George, he's also done some, and he's really charming.
Well, I mean, we went about trying to create a new great narrator and failed. And so we just had to go back and find an old great narrator.
Yeah, we've got a successful person like that. Now, talk about this introduction. These camera angles are unique for this. In that initially it was set up to be a little more foreboding, and this guy would be hidden
and even
for a while.
the location at one point was very much darker, so that we could hide Jim in the shadows.
And it was going to be a big reveal, kind of like a monster thing, where we'd have a moment where he's like dun dun dun, and there's a light, and you realize. It's
but not until they were in Huck's camp, like 20 minutes later.
So some of the shots stayed over, because like that corner shot and some of those,
we have just a few brief moments of that kind of suspense of, who is this guy? And then we very quickly reveal this big, goofy, semi-Swede.
Because if you look at the screen time, it would have turned into a long time of him being unknown, and it ultimately was just not.
As we were developing the story, what became really obvious was that the audience's connection with Big Jim, Little Yimmy, was critical, because otherwise, when he finds his mama in the end, you don't care if you've never connected with him. So a lot of effort was spent in story development, making sure that Jim was while simple, was a fully rounded character who was engaging and charming and sweet and funny. So that when you get to the end and he finds his mama, you go, oh.
Well, it's an interesting balance, because when you have Bob and Larry, who are your kind of central guys, and the story is about Tomato Sawyer's arc and Huck's sacrifice to be this great friend and to help others, as our lesson states, the subject, being Big Jim or Little Jimmy, can be a little sidelined. And so what we found is that he needed to have more dimension and charm.
Yes, more
and
substance.
I'd say we were successful. We watched this with our families, and my 3-year-old little daughter came up to me and I said, "Did you like the story?" She said, "Yes. I was so pleased that Huck helped Big Jim find his mama."
Oh.
And that connection was really what we were driving at, which is that reunion. That's really the goal of all this helping others, and is the payoff. If you do help others, there is eventually a payoff that says you did a great thing, and this is the moment, which is of course at the end of the amphitheater. Which is not now. This is the chase sequence. Talk about the chase sequence.
Oh boy, I love this chase. When we originally were going after this scene, the what I was told was to make it as short as possible. Get him. He runs away. He gets on the raft. It's done. And we tried it that way, and it was boring. And in fact, what we were finding throughout the show was that it had just a really even tone, and we didn't have kind of highs and lows. So I went through and kind of identified scenes that I felt could be a really good high if we properly, if we properly built them out. And so really what I did is I said to Todd Carter, our story supervisor, hey, Todd, make this scene really funny and cool and exciting. And so he actually added tons of gags and bits, and we moved stuff around.
I mean, the hiding behind the little branch, the bear,
Yes.
which the bear is from Mo, right?
That's partially. barely.
We use pieces and parts from different shows.
My hunch is in the end probably no part of that bear is left over from Mo. Although you will see the Mo bear here on the map.
Now, these shots here are just a testament to our great art director, Joe Spataford, who did phenomenal work in designing a world that had this, striking visual Americana appeal, and yet it's very simple.
And charming.
So-
I love that sound effect of the tax going. Da-da-da.
The
Makes me laugh every
the camp
time.
here went through some phases too, mostly around Huck's contribution. The tax office was always there. And that was funny.
Well, originally, it was only Huck's camp. That was way
Right,
back
yeah, way
when.
back, but-
So we added Tom's tax building when we added Tom to the story. There's our bear. Hey, bear. And originally Huck wanted to build the Huck Stop, which was going to be a convenience store that sold turkey jerky. And in development, we felt, well, maybe we could do something a little more interesting.
If
than
you've
a
seen Wizard of
Huck
Oz,
Stop.
you'll know that Brian Roberts here, this fine director, is quite a fan, a thrill seeker among theme parks. And so the idea of being able to make a jerky theme park was just second nature. It just worked. And
was.
It made it really fanciful. And
Well, I
ultimately,
mean,
the
and
goal was
ultimately, it just came out of, okay, I need him to be starting a business that heavily involves jerky. Because that was because I looked at, okay, can I take out the jerky angle? And I couldn't because it made too many other things fall apart. So it's like, okay, I need jerky. I need jerky to be the central theme of his business. Oh, a theme park. And so
and it makes it appealing so that when he has to make the sacrifice to go away, hopefully you kids in the audience, are like, oh, if only he could finish out his camp. Now, speaking of finishing out his camp,
and it was changing to Jerkyland was just worth it so that we could get Mr. Jerky. Like Mr. Jerky is everything
Mascot.
to me now.
So speaking of fully developing it, we actually did spend some time, and if you look around on the DVD, you'll find a fancy little Easter egg that has this in developing Jerkyland, and with a turkey whirl and a bunch of other fun things. So look for that clip; you'll find it.
Yes.
This sequence.
This little line, always glad to help a friend. We added that fairly early on, because I was looking at Huck as a character and looking at him as a central character. In fact, this story really has kind of three central characters. Tom, Huck, and Jim form kind of an ensemble central character. If you had to pick one, in the end, maybe Tom really is the main character because he undergoes the most change. But I was looking at Huck's character arc, and I was like, he has no arc. He never changes. And so I did some research into character arcs, and I actually found that it's completely legitimate to have a character arc in which the character never changes, but he needs to become more firm in his central convictions.
Yep.
So what I wanted to establish early on is that Huck's central conviction was, I'm always glad to help a friend. But then the cost of that increases throughout the show.
The puppies gag. This was a late ad.
Yeah,
we were trying
an early
to-
ad and then a late ad.
Trying to change Dooley, because you don't want him to be. He's supposed to be the bad guy, but we had to work and establish that he's, still a little goofy. And certainly Steve and his compatriots Otto there are.
They're just kind of hapless, employees.
Yes.
Of a corrupt system, but not corrupt themselves.
So to jump back at that scene where we have Bob or Tom on top of Huck and they're trying to hang that tax sign is a little homage to Easter Carol, which is a favorite scene of ours, where in the background of one shot when they're trying to break into the factory, they're jumping on a seesaw and there's balloons and it's just all this silly stuff, and that's similar to that. Hey, so the Logger Song, talk about this.
Mark Steele. Hey, Mark. Mark Steele was one of our early Clark Waynes that we had come in and record the part. But ultimately, we decided to go with Phil. But through happenstance, at the very end of his Clark Wayne recording session, we had him record one of the voices of the Lumberjacks. He had us literally rolling on the floor laughing. We've never laughed that hard in a recording session. And so then when we added this Logger song in, we said, actually it was at the very last minute, we said, I wonder if we can get Mark singing the lead line on the song. So from the mix session, we called Mark and said, hey, we're going to send you some temp audio, record the audio and send it back to us.
And that logging song actually came from an early draft of the script that Mike Naraki had written up. It was his concept to do this story. Ultimately, Phil wrote the script, but Mike had this little song, and that got
it was the opening
again.
song originally.
Mm-hmm.
So I went, at some point I went through kind of all the old versions of the script we had and said, is there anything in here that we can still use in our new script? And that was one of the things that I was able to pull back into the show.
Poor Huck. I really sympathize. He has all the troubles of a small business owner trying to get it off the ground and doing it improperly. Now, this was supposed to be the big reveal that was still going to be in shadow,
right?
With Big Jim, and it's
still pretty scary. I mean, not scary.
That was your introduction. He's right behind me.
He's right behind me. So the teddy bear that Tom just threw away, I feel, is a missed opportunity. One of the story artists, I think Rob Corley, threw that in, but then we just never did anything with it, and it's one of my regrets. That
it's a cute little toss away.
It's a toss away, but we could have done more with it. So
now we established here that I don't like turkey jerky. We kept iterating that through the script because we were trying to make it clear that there was no way that he actually committed a crime, because we didn't want them helping a known criminal that was actually a criminal. And so we were trying to come up with these different ways to show you that, no, he didn't do this crime, and there's a way to believe it. Because he's allergic, and he actually is.
Well, because at one point our angle was, okay, well, if he really is Little Yimmy, then he couldn't have done the crime. Like, so that's what we were kind of resting on.
Well,
but then we realized, well, just because he's Little Yimmy doesn't mean he didn't do it.
Right.
So it definitely was this. It was always a very tricky balance between helping someone who may or may not have done something wrong, combined with at one point Tom was outright lying about in this scene right here. He was lying, telling Yimmy that he was going to call his mama with the signal flare. And we just did some little corrections so that Tom doesn't say we're calling your mama. He says we're calling help.
That's one of my favorite sound effects in the whole.
The squeaky duck.
The squeaky squeaky. We're like, we want to make him really cute. And Adam Frick, who's come back as our sound designer and mixer of old, had just a great little squeak in there. That's a cute little bit.
Yeah, I mean, with the lying thing, we find it's really important to try to keep the energy focused on the lesson you're trying to tell. So if you have a character suddenly lying in the middle of a show about helping others, you end up just confusing things.
This routine here with lighting the flare. It's Todd Carter. We just said we need a bunch of gags, magnifying glass, sparks. It was very cute. And then ultimately it ends up being in the tent. I love this beat here. Wait.
That's a lot of smoke. That's one smoky signal flare.
Yeah, I haven't shot off many signal flares, but that was a big one.
I love that kind of little bit of regret on Tom. You can tell he's thinking,
slowly chipping away at Tom's hard heart to realize that Jimmy is a character you should care for and be nice and help him.
Yes.
Here's Larry getting a lashing from Bob. Pretty classic.
The emotion of the moment was overwhelming.
Poor Huck.
He just got so excited.
$100 reward. That's right. You could buy a new tent.
Now, $100, kids. I know value of money is always hard to pin down, but $100, based on the time period we're setting this in, which is 1904.
Right, so it would have been like 50 cents for the tent, and then $99.50 to finish Jerkyland.
So
right.
This was big money. All right, here's the introduction of our song. This was a song written by Phil. His demo is basically exactly as it sounds here.
It was a great moment, and even when I read the script the very first time, like, because you really you don't know where he's going. Mm-hmm. Why is this guy singing this song? And it's just terrific when Huck pulls out the record player and drops the needle at just the right time. I love how we make it's like, oh, he really is a little Yimmy.
There's some boarding in here. When you storyboard a character and storyboard how the emotionality that the character is going to carry here, it's tough to communicate in CG once we render it out, the same that you do in a storyboard. And there were some boards in here that Todd had worked on that were hilarious, that had these big eyes of Larry. He was just so excited right there.
Yes.
He's telling the truth. He was just like bouncing off the wall. And I always think of those when we get through these scenes here.
Yes.
He's just a happy sleeping guy. Watch it when he rolls over, though.
Got to keep the raft balanced.
All right, so this sequence is about to get crazy because the bad guys are going to show up. And we call them bad guys because their intent is not just to get him back to the camp. It's because it's to keep him quiet because they know.
Well, no, that's not to keep him quiet. It's that Dooley saw in Big Jim a way to make more money.
Yes.
And so Dooley has been illegally holding Big Jim because Big Jim helps him make more money.
And also use him as a cover, because obviously he goes on to continue to be a bit of a jerky thief. Poor Jim is at the center of that. Okay, so the dog sniff. Me and a good friend of mine, when I was in high school, he used to do this routine where when he'd meet someone, he'd sniff like that, like a dog does. You know, they do this sniff, 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 and then if you pass, they go, that means you're good.
So he would sniff
And
everyone
so
he met?
would do this. I can't do it justice, but it was quite funny.
Why
Anyway,
don't we
so when
get
this
him to
came
do
up
it?
at the tent, it was like, okay, here, let's do it. This is a perfect moment to try to play out that joke, and I thought it was very funny. Now that scene actually was much more sophisticated. There was a lot more detail, and it was very funny, mind you, about them being afraid of the water because of crocodiles. Now, kids, there are no crocodiles in the Mississippi, but there was fear that.
But there are alligators in the Mississippi.
And so he was afraid there'd be crocodiles, and so don't get in the water. But ultimately, it was just too complicated, and we took it out and stuck it with just they don't know how to swim. That's a good
Silly
joke.
song.
Where did this art card come from with the jetpack?
It came from a storyboard that Todd Carter drew just because he didn't have anything else to draw.
It's a great, these,
and then John Trent finished it.
We do these from time to time. It's not like the Jaws, when we have.
We do it a little too often, actually.
Where it's like you kind of want to see that play out, because it's so crazy.
Yes, the platypus and the rocket pack.
Biscuit of Zasm Roundabout. Here's the van from Jonah.
Thank goodness we had that, because I don't think we could have afforded the silly song if we had to build a van.
Great van, lots of fun.
We did
a
few adjustments to it.
So
that's where Pa Grape lives.
Let's talk about the production of the song. We were pitched this song by Andrew Peterson and Randall Goodgame,
right?
Having come off their very fun, silly song, Monkey.
And so they pitched this song about this epic biscuit and traveling on a road trip and stopping at banks. And afterwards, Chris goes, "So what'd you think of the song?" I was like, "Great song. We can't produce it. There's no way to pull that off because we could, I felt like we could do it on the countertop, with flats and things like that. But then I was like, then we were just doing SUV again.
Yeah.
We've done that. I had no interest in doing that
So
again.
Brian and I have an interesting relationship as producer and director. We do often get into role reversals, because normally that would be a producer saying it can't be produced, and then the director would say, I know I can do it. Well, in this case, Brian said, I don't think we can do it. I said, I think we can, and so we pounded through it and ended up referencing Going Up, which was a short we had on Sumo of the Opera.
Yes.
In which
Going Up and Starve Christmas.
Sure.
We used the same trick in Starve Christmas. So I basically collaborated with Todd Carter, our constant crisis
Well, I
solver.
would say collaborated / handed it to him, said, Todd, figure out a way to do this.
No, I offered him some thoughts on how we might do it.
And Todd absolutely saved it. He came up with some really fun boards and how this could be put together. And here it is. And it's just
and it's bouncy
lovely.
and fun. How do you feel about the height of the van?
I'm not nuts about it. I think it's too silly.
You still think it's too high?
I think it's too silly.
It's not.
It's not
I don't
my-
see how you can say something
my
is too
silly song.
silly in a silly
It's a silly
song.
song. I know. I realize that. All right. Anybody get this joke? Anybody? When they pitched it to us, we all sat in the room, literally
Well, 'cause
crickets.
they-
and like,
They got to that part and they were all excited about the joke, and they sat there like waiting for us to laugh, and we just looked at them.
like what? What do we miss?
Okay, what's next?
Well, so that's. I guess I'm sure some of you know it, and you can just email our customer service and let us know that you got the joke. But there's a youth group joke. It's like a little game that you go around, and
This is a map. A what? A map. A what? A map. Oh, a map.
and that's how it goes.
Yes, and so that's a reference to that game, apparently. It's
I
funny.
love all your choices, Brian. Here of all the things they passed, the ball of
Yeah, I
yarn,
feel
the
like
Eiffel Tower, and
we didn't quite get what It's like the Eiffel Tower should have been like made of matchsticks, because the point is that's not actually the Eiffel Tower. It would be a cheap roadside attraction.
The dockside, yeah.
So they're supposed to be driving past cheap roadside
The
attractions.
signage here, the
So it should have been
arrows.
like a Statue of Liberty made of bubble gum, and
We initially had those signs up with just distances on it, and realizing that not all of our fans can read, we decided to put some icons on there and make the arrows really big, and hopefully that communicated that they were going the wrong direction. The silly song
you'll
announcer.
get it the fourth or
the
fifth
silly
time.
song announcer. So
That joke I think is really funny.
we basically, we've never established that the silly song announcer is actually a separate.
Well, we have
voice.
established it because he's always been credited separately. Whenever
Yes.
Phil gets credited on a show, he gets credited separately as Archie, separately from Archie. Sorry,
So that character
the
is a
silly song
separate
announcer
character.
is separate from Archie in the crediting of shows.
Yes.
And they used to sound, I think, a little more different, but we've kind of had this drift where they've come towards the center.
And yet it still works.
It still works.
there's
We had some
enough difference.
problems. Originally, the idea was that there would be no character animation on those setups, and we would just hear this kind of back and forth between the announcer, Bob, and Archie, which of course are all Phil. and,
Yeah.
and so we tried it without animation. It's like, that's not going to work.
That's just confusing.
So we
This-
had to add the characters.
This tipping scene, Todd ended up taking a wrangle at it to get the comedy of it, and it's just very cute.
Very cute.
Back and forth and splashing.
Some nice lighting.
So the production of the show requires, of course, a great deal of water as well as
You're not
river
kidding.
bank, because you have to have a long river to go along, and so that presented some interesting production challenges.
Right. So what we did from the very beginning was I said, okay, what I don't want is to have a really sparse river. I want it to be very detailed with lots of foliage and trees and grasses along the bank and all this stuff. So what I realized is I couldn't afford to do that and have basically two sides to the river. So I made a decision very early on with Joe Spataford that we were just going to build this one side of the river, and then there's a couple little islands that we can use to cheat the appearance of another side of the river. But if you looked at this set, it's not a river because there's only one bank. It's more like an ocean.
Yes.
So as a result, we had to be very careful with how we shot it.
See, he's a catch and release kind of fisherman.
Right, well, that's a little character detail about Jimmy that we're showing there.
Very nice. And then the water, they just did a heroic job in production of giving us so much water. Inevitably, when you're shooting on the river, once you buy in doing that, you kind of have to put water in
Well,
the
when you
show.
say we're going to do a show set on the Mississippi River, you're
starting down the path.
saying we're going to do a show with water.
So we actually limited the number of water shots we would have initially, and production got just a little more into it and gave us a lot more water. So we're really pleased to have it, though. Fish slapping scene.
Fish slapping, get it? Just like
That's a
Jonah.
nod.
Oh, that's
That's a
funny.
nod.
Yes.
Oh, wait, his fishing is... there he goes. He's
That
going
one.
to catch
Poor
it.
Tom. Tom can't catch a break in this show.
And
'Cause
then,
he's got a fish.
little Jimmy gets so excited here. He just wants to come and join in the... No. Oh, there they go.
Notice the sound effect on the cheerleaders' boat, if you didn't before. Somehow they've procured an outboard motor in 1904.
Lovely, he says.
Oh, sweet Jimmy.
In case you ever try that,
Love
now
little
you
Jimmy.
know tomatoes, cucumbers, and gourds float. So here's a big reveal. This was an important story reveal where
Right.
we had to explain...
And it was a scene we added
Yes.
in development.
We wanted Jimmy to explain why he was innocent. Tom's still not sympathetic. He just wants to get back and get over with this.
Well, it kind of indicates Tom's attitude to Jim throughout, and that's that Tom doesn't really view little Yimmy as a person.
Yeah, well...
He views little Yimmy as an obstacle. And so, his goal is to get rid of this obstacle as quickly as possible.
and,
And it's not until much later in the show that in fact, at the train station, that Tom realizes kind of how he's been thinking of Yumi and how wrong that is.
And I think it's interesting to note this is kind of like a roadside assistance gone wrong. You know, Tom wanted to help him and was like, okay, we'll do this thing. And it just keeps turning into more and more and more and more and more, where he's just like, okay, this is more than I was willing to give at the outset. And
yes.
So this town, tell us about where this town came from, Brian.
That's Dodgeball City right there.
Dodgeball City from the Ballad of Little Joe.
Yes. This show has a relatively small number of locations as our shows go. However, most of the details are relatively more complex than we usually do. So we decided early on that one compromise we could make was that rather than building 2 new towns, Fort Muscatine and Fort Madison, that we could actually redress Dodgeball City, make it a little greener, add some trees and things, and have a town that does everything we need it to. The interesting thing is Muscatine, we did a little research. Muscatine actually was an extremely highly populated city in 1904 and would have been much more city and much less kind of frontier town the way we see it here.
This falling down scene is just fantastic.
They animated the heck out of it.
So fun. Great. Getting away quick.
Babies! That's a silly one.
Now, how did a baby launch a signal flare? With
a magnifying glass. See,
Don't
that's a joke we set up
not using
earlier.
matches, because, that's not safe, but...
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, we kind of struggled with, how can this baby light this signal flare? At one point, he was lighting it with a street lamp, but to do that, he had to crawl up the street lamp and, get near an open flame, and we're like, how can we do this? And then, at that point, we already had the magnifying glass joke earlier with Huck. And so we said, oh, we can pay that joke off.
Nice.
That was very nice. This is where Tom kind of reaches his breaking point. I played with actually having a scene where Tom tries to take control of the raft and paddle back upriver. But it just was ultimately a distraction, and it just got in the way.
Now here's the distraction.
Speaking of distraction.
The King and the Duke.
Jimmy and Jerry.
Great characters from the books. The book and various interpretations. These guys are always really fun. And so Jimmy and Jerry were a great choice in here. And you'll find a little feature on the DVD as well, talking about this scene and just kind of alternate ways that this could have been produced. We think this one is the funniest. Right, watch for this donut right here.
Whoa, there it goes.
There rolling
off
off of this hill.
You can see more of it in the widescreen version.
Great job by the animation team. Whoa,
Yeah.
What's that on the side there, Brian?
Can I talk about that?
That's a little homage to a classic television series. That
From my childhood. What was I going to say?
And
King and
Sorry.
the Duke were interesting characters. They originally were more villainous than they ended up. And I kept pulling back on that because I'm like, Jimmy and Jerry are not villains. Like, we can't play them as villains. It doesn't work. In fact, they even got arrested at the end at one point. And I I let that go for a little while, and suddenly I realized, wait, why did they get arrested? They didn't actually do anything wrong. Taking the donuts was probably on the cusp, but not something you would probably get arrested for reasonably. So I felt like a much better comeuppance was to have them have to meet up with the baker again at the end, and I thought about ways to get them tarred and feathered, but ultimately that was too
more
complicated.
bumbling and selfish and less,
Well, bumbling and selfish,
criminal.
looking out for their own best interests. I think we all know that if they were to get the $100 reward, they would go, spend it on popcorn balls and cheese curls. So they're not ultimately bad guys. They're just people who are, willing to use other people to meet their own goals.
So now the raft is fully loaded. We have a tent. We have 2 buddy gourds there, a tomato, a cucumber, and a large gourd. The blocking on here to get everybody onto that little board was pretty tricky.
Well, and
Things
here's
hang
the
off
thing.
now
I
and
mean,
then.
we talked about using different sized rafts, so the raft would grow as the party grew. But I just felt like I'd rather make the raft, just this absolutely the smallest raft it can be, and still support all these characters, relatively comfortably. So what we do though is a lot of sliding around between cuts like the characters are moving wildly from one place to another every time the camera moves. But it works, I think.
Mm-hmm.
It's a fun. I still love that we made the raft is Dooley's sign.
Yes.
It just adds a nice texture to it, and I think ultimately is fun that they have Dooley's sign. Although I think, in my mind at the end they probably give it back to Dooley. Since it doesn't actually belong to them.
That's the story ending you've worked out in your mind.
Right. In my mind, in the end, little Yimmy goes and nails.
Brian's
the sign
one for
back
tying up loose ends here.
Well, in my mind, anyway.
So
It's something I have to fight when I'm developing stories because I have a tendency to want to make sure every detail is covered, and ultimately that's just not necessary. Those in the audience who are concerned about making sure every detail is covered, probably have enough imagination and
to complete the gaps
intelligence
themselves. Yeah. Mm-hmm. As long as you have a logical conclusion you can come to, that's
Exactly.
So here it is. There's the big
Bob and
statement.
Larry breaking up.
This is a big scene.
It is, and I struggled with how to play it. Whether are we going for tear jerking here? Like, is this is this supposed to be really sad that they're breaking up, and should we try to pull that out? And I realized it was a really similar situation. In that case, it's not sad that they're breaking up because the one who's making the right choice is so absolutely making the right choice that you understand why the separation needs to happen.
Skilled raft drivers.
I'm gonna make sure little Yimmy finds his mama.
Then you'll be by yourself. Goodbye,
And ultimately,
Huckleberry Larry.
it's not a tearjerker. It's just kind of
And it is,
it's just
but
kind of
it
winsome.
is the biggest sacrifice that Huck will make on his whole journey here is losing his friend. As much as he's already sacrificed in Jerky Land and other things, that was the hardest one.
Yep. We even at one point had him kind of having a fantasy about Jerky Land in the middle of that scene, but it was too much.
So here we are at Fort Madison, and our train station. We never got to fully capitalize on the fact that there are some beautiful train tracks.
Wait, you can see him right? Oh, you can see him behind
Corner of the
Tom's
hat?
hat
Oh.
there. Yeah, we built these beautiful train tracks that you never see
Yeah,
because
well,
I changed the edit at the last minute.
There's this fishing pole.
That's fun.
This
So
was
we had to redesign the train station to get it up high so that it didn't feel like Tom could just hop off the porch and grab the pole himself. It was also a late idea to have Clark be the one to not help, and then actually an accident in animation to have Chato be the one who breaks the pole. So it's kind of it's like Chato and Clark are kind of colluding to try to get this lesson through to
lesson
Tom.
teaching, yeah.
And
As storytellers, they have that right.
And I really like how that works. So actually, Clark is getting involved here. He got involved by, I can imagine him paying off those peas to say, "Hey guys, go knock that fishing pole over."
Hang on, little Yimmy.
Help is on the way. Is that funny?
The World's Fair.
The 1904 Louisiana Purchase Exposition, to be precise.
Great place. What's interesting is we came off of doing The Wonderful Wizard of Oz and had the theme park as, somewhat central at the end of it, and this one ended up being similar, and yet done completely differently in a way that makes it entirely unique. Some great design here and building, by Joe Spadaford, and
Chuck.
it
Chuck
feels
helped with this as well.
It feels very full featured, like it's just quite a place to visit, and yet it's actually
the only
quite
feature
simple.
it doesn't have is water in the log ride.
And it makes it feel very, which is funny because initially the log ride is supposed to be broken and nobody's supposed to get on it, and thus you wouldn't want water, but that turned out being a unnecessary distraction, and so we just decided it's just funnier for him to have to get stuck on the ride having to ride it.
Yes.
I'm fine, little Yimmy. We'll find your mama in a minute.
I just think it's funny that Huck can't just hop out of the raft because that would be breaking the rules.
I know. Don't jump
And
out
Huck
of
can't,
line.
Huck
Oh
can't
no,
break the rules.
that's not his mama. That's Mr. Dooley. This scene has just a phenomenal use of extras. The production team did a great job of pulling out a bunch of characters from our cast. I'm sure you'll have a lot of fun digging through fans and seeing various characters in various costumes from different shows that we've produced.
Yes.
It's it's just really entertaining.
Well, and the credit goes to JC, our animation supervisor, who just did a great job of pulling out all those crowd shots and making them work.
Yeah, and James, all through the show, I think it's just an outstanding amount of character animation. Some really great moments of funny and dramatic.
Well, it's the same amount as always.
Right, but great moments.
Yes. Oh, it's an astounding amount of moments. Yes, it's always 45 minutes.
And it's because
of
there are
animation.
some times where you just, you have characters that just play through a scene and do what they need to do and are where they need to be and say their line where they need to be. But when you push it as an animation team and make it funny or make it engaging, that's when you really win. And we have so many of those throughout the show.
I love this shot, and then I love how it pays off right here, and here, and here. Oh, there. Yeah.
Down he goes.
This is a really exciting scene. I mean, you've heard us throughout the show talk about scenes that have changed or got added to or taken out. This scene is pretty much the one scene in the whole show that never got touched from the first time it was edited. It just worked, and it was terrific.
Yeah.
It was exciting and fun, and it just worked out really well. And even through the layout and animation process, it retained all that excitement. I love this pea. Whoa.
So on a Ferris wheel, a real Ferris wheel, you do have to balance the Ferris wheel with your occupants,
That's
so you want
correct.
to keep people. That's why they have to turn it and put one person on one side, And so for him to jump on from the air and hit it on one side, it would certainly offset the weight.
Indeed.
A little more dramatically in our case. Here's Mama Belle in her little theater.
It's amazing that she's a fairly major character in this story, and the story's almost over, and this is the first time we see her. I think it's a lot of fun.
This is
storytelling-wise.
certainly a bit of an homage to theme parks that you may have attended as a child, in which they have little musicians that are playing for a group of a few people.
Mama. This is such a sweet reunion. Mama Belle was Kay Sewell, who works at she's a performer at the theater here right next to our offices here in lovely Tennessee. And she was recommended by a friend of hers who also performs there, that she auditioned for this part and came in and I was really nervous about Mama Belle, about finding someone who could kind of, for such a small part, who could grab onto it and make it something really fun and funny and sweet. And Kay just blew me away, and it was such a no-brainer. Like, it's one of those auditions you just want to offer them the part right there because you're so excited. And she was so much fun to work with, and just was thrilled.
So this escape was an addition late.
It was, because we felt like Dooley needed one last gasp.
One last attempt. Really show that he's a criminal.
And it just didn't feel Dooley-ish enough for him just to stand there and get arrested, without a fight.
And there he is. He's getting involved.
Good job, Clark. Happy River. So, I guess in this shot, what you can surmise is that word got out in the fair that Mama Belle and Little Yimmy were together again, and so a crowd gathered. Oh, the riverboat. Remember when I told you I wanted a riverboat, Chris?
I do, and it just felt like the story needed some other finale, and I wholeheartedly
Yes.
embrace this, and it worked out fine. There was a lot of concern when you introduce a riverboat. You introduce possible problems.
Well, there's just a huge host of problems. The first of all being that you've got this huge moving platform that you've got to attach, like 15 characters to, and keeping everyone on the boat moving properly, but ultimately, of all the technical problems we saw in this show, I'd say this presented some of the
pretty well.
fewest.
Now, there was some great design here. One of the things being like the wheel being covered, so you don't have to see splashing water.
Yeah, well, that was
over on
part
the
of my
side,
bargain when I told you I wanted a riverboat. I said,
and it would be on the far side of the boat.
I said it'll be on the far side of the boat. There'll be no water effects caused by the wheel.
Yes.
So it's actually a side wheeler instead of a stern wheeler.
One more shout out at the chicken joke.
Yay. So anyway, originally the ending took place in like 4 locations with lots of talking and very little singing, and I felt like, okay, let's take all that talking, cut a lot of it out, extend the song and put it all on a riverboat, and that'll give us the feeling we want for the end of the show. And it works so great. I'm thrilled. So thanks for the boat.
Good
Thanks
boat.
for letting me have a boat. That's great. And how can you have Huckleberry Finn without a riverboat?
Big
In a-
boat somewhere.
You can't. That's the answer. You can't.
And here's Lunt espousing his beliefs on the story from his little book again.
This is one of the most thoughtful comments we've ever had from Jimmy Gord, I believe. Which
Bob
is
and
why
Larry
everyone else is surprised.
mystified. Following in the theme of the Norm's notes.
Norm's notes version. Here we have a little bit of life back in QWERTY. QWERTY used to be a really active character, and then he kind of just turned into...
He had to work it.
All he did was turn his verse on. So we just kind of let QWERTY get in on the fun a little bit there, which is great.
Yeah, Larry, I think that's right. When you know what you should do...
Mike Naraki helped us shape this closing countertop here to make sure the teaching was right, and did a great job. We struggled with whether or not to use that verse because of the word sin. And it's like, do we really want to say sin? If we say sin, we have to kind of describe that. And I think Mike really found a great way of telling us what we needed to know about the verse, without getting too in depth about sin.
Yeah, it's a tough one to get a child's head around as far as understanding what doing something wrong is equated to sin.
Yes. In fact, Kurt Heineke told us when his boys went home after watching the show the first time, one of them wouldn't help the other. And so the one who wasn't getting helped went to Mom and said, "Mom, my brother isn't helping me. He's sinning."
All this cake and ice cream.
From Sherlock Holmes.
Remember, kids, God made you
Yeah, so Larry's been talking with his mouth full throughout the show, and Bob finally calls him on it.
Use your manners.
And that's it. I can't believe we're done.
There it is. Great show,
All
Brian.
finished. Hey, Phil,
Phil,
thanks.
Excellent work.
Sorry Phil couldn't be here for the
You
commentary.
did such a great job with
He's
it.
fun to commentate with. Hey, Joe, good job. We'll just pat each other on
And
the
Kurt,
back here.
we didn't
Kurt.
talk much
We
about
didn't talk at all about the score,
so we can talk about it
I'm going to
here.
talk about it now. Man, I love the score in this show. I really, Kurt and I agreed that it would be a lot of fun to keep our instrumentation very simple and very authentic. So he used instruments that he's, if he's ever used, only very limited basis. Obviously we had a lot of banjo. He had the mouth harp. He had, washboards. And so there's just this terrific, simple bluegrass vibe to a lot of the score. In fact, in the few times when we tried to put in like a really theatrical score, it didn't work because we'd set this tone of, no, the score on this show is bluegrass music.
And under the credits here, you really get to hear just the great job he did in flourishing.
Well,
it
and
out.
obviously this isn't bluegrass. This is from the fair. And what's fun is doing research, I found that John Philip Sousa, the great march writer, musical writer, composer, was actually at the 1904 Louisiana Purchase Exposition and made performances on a daily basis with a marching band. And at first we were just going to put in some Sousa music, and then kind of very close to the end of production, I said to Kurt, like, could we do Meet Me in St. Louis as a march? And that's what that was. And man, that just turned out great. Again, John Troust animating Drippy.
Drippy the Drop.
Drippy the Drop.
If you've ever visited the offices here at Big Idea and seen Kurt Heineke's office, you'll know that he has a lot of instruments. Lots of
And
little
he used
noise
every
makers.
single one of them on the Silly Song.
He pulled them out all through the score. Silly Song, of course, was a great one, but he just really pulled a lot of things out to just have a lot of fun.
So
And
great
he's
job,
always
Kurt.
exploring ways to make music and rhythm, and he came up with some really fun things here.
All right, well, that's the show.
Thank you all for listening in. Hope you enjoyed our little discussion.
And thank you for supporting us in what we do here at Big Idea.
With Big River Rescue, the adventures of Tomato Sawyer and Huckleberry Larry.
Thanks, Chris. Good show.
Hey, Brian, thank you. Thanks for making another one for us.
We have like 5 more seconds.
You're going to hop to the D.
Thanks
1,
to
2,
my
3.
wife. Love you, honey.
All right. See you all next time.
Okay, Larry, it's time for the theme song.
Hello there. This is John Waba, the director of the show.
And it's Chris Wall, the producer. Happy to have everyone. Thanks for listening to this track. Hope you enjoy your time viewing this along with us.
Yep, and we are here to talk about the show.
It's been a phenomenal show to make with John Waba here. John, it's your first 45-minute VeggieTale.
That's right.
Congratulations and welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's really special show for me because I directed a couple of shows, God Made You Special with VeggieTales, and maybe a couple of the 3-2-1 Penguins. But this one is very special because it's the real full-blown VeggieTales show that I directed, and I'm really very proud of it.
And so, John, people that don't know you may have seen that you've been around Big Idea for a long time. Here and there, gone away, come back.
Mm-hmm. I started in 1998 with the show Madame Blueberry.
Madame Blueberry.
Blueberry.
One of my personal favorites.
So yes, Madame Blueberry was my first show with VeggieTales.
Mm-hmm.
That was Mike Naraki's first directing show. So I worked with him as an editor 10 years ago. And I edited a lot of shows, and then up to the movie Jonah.
Mm-hmm.
2003, and then I left for 3 years and came back to work on the Pirates movie. Mike Naraki directed that as well, and I edited for him, and did a bunch of stuff from between now and then.
And for people that don't know you, your accent belies a different country. Where are you from?
Yes. I am actually born in Cairo, Egypt. I'm Egyptian.
So when we talk about a show that takes place in Bible times, it's pretty
Yes.
close to you, I guess.
Exactly. Especially with Abraham and Sarah, that they actually took a trip to Egypt at some point, although we kind of like hint to it in our show.
Right.
But yeah, it's special to me.
So Junior's with Bob on the countertop. Haven't had that for a couple shows.
Usually it's Larry, but we went with Junior this time.
It was adorable.
He is. Look at this.
Dancing around singing this
Yeah.
song. So this countertop was written by Mike, correct?
It's correct. I think it's a combination between Mike Naraki and Tim Hodge.
Mm-hmm. Really fun stuff. We initially drafted it to have them talking about how much he wanted his mom's cake.
It was a pie, I think.
Oh, was it pie first?
It's a cake or a pie.
Yeah, I know it became cake, and then we ultimately were like,
Yeah,
there's a
cake.
far more compelling thing for cookies.
Yeah, we all like cookies here. So we switched it to cookies because it's quicker to make.
Yep, we've had fans bring us cookies, and that's a glorious time right now.
Yeah, that's a good tradition.
So we got a letter here, and this is from an interesting location. You want to tell us about that one?
It's from Cairo, Illinois. That's
Cairo.
the proper pronunciation, I think. But it's really a little bit a tribute to Cairo. That's where I was born. I'm from Cairo, Egypt. So a tribute to Cairo and a tribute to Illinois because I lived in Chicago, Illinois for a good 6 years.
And Cairo, Illinois is a real place, but pronounced
is.
Cairo, spelled the same as Cairo.
I believe it's pronounced Cairo, Illinois. So we kind of took a little bit of liberty there to make it Cairo,
So
Illinois.
this idea of it being a documentary and kind of shot differently. What did you think? And that was in the script right off because it was Phil's idea.
Mhm.
He was really excited about this idea of shooting it documentary style with the camera moving around and it being a story that Bob told. How did you begin to work with that? I mean, obviously here he is pulling out a camera.
Yeah. I really was very excited about the documentary style because I thought it just gives another element it's almost like as if it's pre-planned story, pre-planned animation, and it just gave extra element for us to kind of like have almost the audience point of view and the camera point of view, so we're almost there and we have access to like behind the scenes while we're already in the scenes.
And that little transition there with everybody blowing away is a direct homage and lift. We purposely meant to pull it from
Josh and the Big Wall.
another fantastic VeggieTales show for veggie fans.
In fact, we had a line there with Junior saying, "Oh, déjà vu," at some point. We took it out.
So according to Phil, the only thing you need to do a Bible story is sand and sandals.
Exactly.
And
Yeah,
you're in
and,
Bible
and
times.
hot sun,
Yep.
and yeah, it works out
Some
from
fun
there.
stuff here.
The French peas, whenever you use the French peas, you know that they're gonna provide an element of fun. And they are kind of like, we're talking about, there's a story about patience, and you see this nurse. She's the opposite of patience. She's pretty, like hasty, rushed, frantic. She just wants to do everything quickly.
This joke took a long time to try to figure out if it would work or not, and I know it was one that when I first read the script, I wasn't sure if it would play. The audience will tell us if it works. But John, you had a lot of fun. Patience and patience.
Yep. The whole thing playing on the word patience. It's basically with the nurse thinking it's a patient, like somebody
Somebody's
who's
sick, right.
and she's eager to help. See this syringe, by the way?
Yeah.
It keeps growing in the show. Like when we come back to the syringe, you'll notice it's bigger the next time.
Oh, it's small again. John had this idea to change its size throughout it, so later on it becomes the size of like a bazooka.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I thought that was very funny. I like Akmitha. Nurse Akmitha is so fun.
Great. Yeah, Shar Jackson does her voice.
She
and
does a great
she
job.
had a fantastic time with it.
Here's our own pug rape.
We used a new animation studio this time, and there were some funny bits where we had to teach them how to get her eye to twitch. You know, that first scene where she pokes her head out of the tin.
That's
She
right.
does her signature eye twitch, and John had to labor on that with the crew.
Well, I actually took footage from Esther, the show, when she did her musical number as Queen Akmitha, the puppy song, and she can like get a little twitchy at the end. She does the same twitch in the High Silk Hat song too. So I just provided the guys with some footage, and they did a good job on it.
Yep. So here we are with, I think that's an 8mm camcorder of some kind.
Yeah.
Maybe high 8.
Yeah,
Perhaps.
we didn't really, follow the technology of the day.
The camel! All right, so let's talk about the camel. We had another show with a camel in it. What show is that?
Jonah.
Jonah.
Yeah, this is a modified camel from Jonah.
The camel in Jonah was named Reginald, and he had
Mm-hmm.
a monocle.
He had a monocle, and
little
he had long legs. It was hard to put him in any framing.
You would have seen legs and a head.
Just knees. See, the syringe is bigger a little bit. So
It's coming up here where she's going to be.
I know, like-
The monsters. There's that eye twitch. Yeah. That nurse costume is a direct lift, and where's that from?
that's from the Belly Button song. This whole nurse costume came from the Belly Button.
Directly from Belly Button, which is on The Ballad of Little Joe, if you haven't seen that video.
It's a very good song.
Great one.
Boys in the Sink.
Now, Pa has played in numerous biblical characters. This has to be, one of the great ones, though. I mean, playing
I think-
Abraham.
Yes. It's such an iconic character from the Bible, and and it just fits Pa perfectly.
And you can't have Abraham without having Sarah.
She's our new character. This is a new design, a brand new character for Mug Rape.
And you may say to yourself, but wait, I've seen this character before.
Here's,
And here's John's favorite
here's a
joke.
gag. This is my favorite gag here.
And if you listen carefully, John voiced one of the camels.
Yeah, actually, this one is Kurt Heineke.
That one was Kurt.
Yeah, he did a great
So
camel.
Sarah, or that character, Ma Grape, was actually in The Grapes of Wrath, which was way back in the day.
Second show.
And that character was much more Bob that was colored green. This one, if you look back, it's quite funny. This one is designed with a little more feminine features.
Yes, and she has eyes because the original Mug Rape
The original Ma Grape
didn't
had eyes.
have.
No, she
Did
did. She had Bob's
Yeah,
eyes,
you're right.
though.
You're
She
right.
didn't have the eyelashes or the
Exactly.
mascara.
Yeah.
That's and I don't think she had the lips. I think she had the same mouth
Yeah.
as
Okay.
Bob. So the lips that was a Madame Blueberry thing.
Actually, our kids did the voices for this
Yay.
part.
That was Nadine. That was John's daughter.
Yeah, and Gracie just said Gracie
My little girl
Wall.
Grace got to do one.
It's
fun.
This is Lot, my favorite character. Lot's favorite nephew, and my favorite character.
we didn't want to make fun of Lot. He's a biblical character, but the Bible describes him in Genesis as basically he's a teenager, and so we thought, well, let's kind of play that up a little bit. And yes, he was Abraham's close nephew, but
Yeah.
what if we played up his attitude a little bit?
He's got a little.
So he gets to be a goofball.
That's Kurt again,
There's-
and Brian, I think. This is a nice moment here after all the camel screams.
there were moments of the story, John, that are interesting to me because you play them really light and goofy and slapstick, and then there's moments that are genuinely honest. I mean, this is a, you know, when Abraham met with God here and got this amazing promise, it was a huge moment in the Bible, and you know, I think you did a great job of being as true as you could with talking vegetables.
Yeah, definitely. And I wanted to push the contrast of with the big holy moments to keep him as holy as possible, and the rest of the show just make it as fun as possible.
And we were really careful. I mean, even like that scene, the Bible says that he went away from the camp and met God on a mountain by himself. And so we wanted to really be careful to do that, honestly.
Just give him one-on-one quiet time.
There it is, the huge syringe. Sorry.
Yeah, that's like a... she's like a soldier marching.
I love Kurt's little...
Yeah, it's like a marching soldier. Yep. She's on a mission.
She's going to heal you.
Yeah. There you go, Sarah.
There's Sarah.
She's not happy, I can tell you.
Casting Sarah was interesting because, you know, anytime you introduce a new character, it's just, we always get nervous here over at Big Idea with VeggieTales because, you know, we have a great cast of characters, and anytime you bring somebody new in, they've got to be able to mix in and be funny and entertaining. And so as we brought up Sarah, there was an idea circling the building. And that idea was to introduce Delilah, who's actually a radio host. You may have heard of her. And so we talked with her, and she was just ecstatic to be able to be included in VeggieTales, and we were excited to have her. And so we recorded her as Sarah, and it went outstanding.
It went great, and I think what I liked a lot about Delilah is she was eager to bring her own personality to the character. So she never complained. Whoa, that's a nice, nice one here too. Ouch. But back to Delilah, she really never complained about how many takes we tried to take and repeating lines, all this kind of stuff. She was really eager to nail the character, and I think she did a great job.
And if you've heard her radio voice, she's very smooth, and you wouldn't expect her to be this entertaining. But when she's on her own, she's a really funny lady.
Yep.
So great to have her. This sequence was interesting. So it's another one of the 2D with 3D stuff. So the 2D stuff was all painted by Joe Spataford.
That's right. Very good job.
Postcards.
Egypt, my homeland, pyramids.
And certainly it gives a really cool kind of nostalgic trip as we kind of skate through that part of their story. Initially, we had talked about visiting those places, John, remember? And it was a longer stop at some of the things that happened.
We had scenes for Egypt and scenes along the way. And we just thought it's taking us away from the main story. The main story about God promised Abe something. And Abe and Sarah waited and waited and waited until they kind of like got the promise at the end.
Yeah.
And I thought there was a lot of subplots there that might not be necessary, especially with the Egypt visit.
But you can go back and read your favorite Bible story here
in Genesis
and see what the full story is, some of the stuff we took out. We were really focused on telling the story of Isaac and God's promise there.
And Junior here is actually the one who's learning the story, the lesson about patience. He's the one with a problem of being impatient, wants to go back and get the cookies quickly. I love the sheep. I have to say, this show I try to borrow or like revive some of our old jokes, like the sheep tipping here.
From Dave and the Giant Pickle.
Exactly. A lot of fun here with the sheep.
And Todd boarded this out for us just beautifully. So cool.
Yeah.
I allowed Lot to choose which direction he would go.
Lot here. This is the departure. This is a fun gag too. I love this one.
Joe Spataford made this choice for us.
Yeah.
In the lush and the desert.
And I think Adam Frick with the sound effects and Kurt with the music, because visually it's just, you go back and forth, but the audio, the sound plays a lot of, the gags. Like you go west and it's like there's like threatening animals and
And this is actually another serious moment from the story because Abraham really lost a lot along the way here. Had a lot of conflict, of course they had war here coming up and lost, family. I mean, God really took him through a lot to get to the promise, and it's interesting because we set it up as this retirement community. It really was, a lush place. He enjoyed living there,
right.
and God's like, that's great, but if you want my promise, you're going to have to go follow me and do these things.
Abraham gave up too many things, and I think the departure of Lot was a big emotional point there because it was almost that's his big part of the family, almost like his son. So God stripped him, you know, even from that. Here's Junior getting a little antsy.
Yeah, it's interesting to teach a story of patience from the life of Abraham because he's, of course, known as the man of faith, which is an element of patience. And I think that's something that if it was the one story element that we worked with the most on this video, it was how do you teach patience as the only element, you know, out of Abraham's life because there's so much to learn from.
Yeah, too many lessons we can learn from Abraham.
Get the cookies your mom promised you.
And in here we draw a comparison about like, hey kids, if you trust that your mom and dad are gonna do the same thing they promised to do, then you just all what you need to do is wait patiently because they're gonna follow through.
Yep. I love that turn there.
Sweet music too.
All right, so here we go. Back to the filming.
I got an extra if you want it. Sure.
Little joke.
We
here.
danced. We had a lot of options on what that could be.
Yeah, I thought that was funny.
Ready to roll. So, Abe, I too know how hard it is to wait calmly for something.
Junior kind of taking over his
Tell us what happened.
his own lesson learning
I
here.
got a new name.
Yeah.
Abraham.
And now
Which
Abraham
Becoming
can-
bigger part of the story.
Yeah.
has a nice ring to it, doesn't it?
These are like the waiting moments of the
Outside
Isaac's
the
arrival.
delivery room. Yeah.
It's the same nurse.
She's nice now.
Yeah. This is a nice moment here. I
This
love,
is,
love the little baby.
The Pride Rock moment.
Yeah. Just puts him up in the air.
Yeah, that's awesome.
What a nice moment.
Kurt did a phenomenal job. We'll say this a few times through here, but this score, I was just thrilled. He really didn't have a lot of themes to work off of because there wasn't a lot of songs in this one, in Abe and Sarah. And he pulled off just a great bit of score and made this, you know, this huge emotional swell right there.
Clayton.
And that's Isaac, all grown up, well, partially grown up.
See, we tried to keep the.
I thought it was interesting.
golfing
We didn't really introduce him. You know, nobody says, "Hey there, Isaac."
Yeah,
So
exactly.
we just kind of hope you all knew who that is.
But God always comes through with his promise.
Great segment.
Are you ready for
This is
your
Bob
cookies
kind
now,
of
Junior?
wrapping up, you know, the story lesson, and everybody wants to go. I'm not sure if they learn to be patient. They're just like, woo, off we go.
They're just thrilled about the reward.
And
Good segment.
the
Oh,
end.
static and out. All right, here we go. Another silly song.
Oh, my favorite.
This is another silly song from our good friends Andrew Peterson and Randall Goodgame. They've had a couple in a row here. The Sneeze Doctor. Sneeze if you need to was the official title.
And this is about Bob being, he's really having a problem. He wants to sneeze. He's trying to sneeze, but he can't sneeze. So he goes to the sneeze doctor, who is, we'll introduce him in a second here. Larry the Cucumber is a sneeze doctor.
Of course he is.
Yep.
There's a little doctor. A lot of fun things on the walls here.
See the achoo.
As you look around. Achoo.
And poor Bob is miserable throughout the song.
Okay, I love Adam's.
Yeah,
On the note.
nice sound effect there. But you see, Larry is like enjoying the song. He's like waltzing all over the place.
Now talk about that. You had to teach the animators how to get Larry to do some waltzing and some
Yep.
posing. It was really hard.
Yeah, well, no, actually, Peter did the animation in this one. I think he did a good job. I gave him reference from our old show, The Dance of the Cucumber, if you guys remember that, from show 3, I think.
There it is.
Yep.
Flamenco.
This is the flamingo. Yep, that was a tough one.
That's a tough one. To get Larry's little body to pose that way.
But see, Larry's just trying different things on Bob. You know, peppers. You know, different light, like looking at the sun. More peppers. There was like potpourri at some point. I just poor Bob. He just can't sneeze.
He wants to so badly. Will it ever happen? Let it go.
Now, like Larry's getting desperate, just
When,
throwing things that don't make sense now.
When Randall and Andrew first came in and pitched this to us, oh my gosh, we howled. And thought we had a real good song on our hands. And then John obviously amped it here with a phenomenal performance. But Also, the idea that what if when Bob starts sneezing, he can't stop.
Is that one good moment here? That's my favorite part. The dream sequence. That's when like Bob goes to like sneeze heaven for a second there.
Here he goes in.
And
Larry.
again, just another interruption.
There it is.
Yay.
The sneeze. Sneezes are very hard to do, by the way. To fake.
Yep. Phil did a good job sneezing for us, I have to say.
We had to really work him through it.
Yeah, everybody's
Oh,
happy
Nakamita
here.
just shows up for no reason.
Yeah, and here that's what the part where I kind of like I wanted to take it to the next level. Let's keep Bob sneezing all the way,
Destroy the set.
and everybody else like it's like they're lost in the song. They're like waltzing and dancing, and he's like, "Somebody help me!"
Off he goes.
The eggs is just so funny.
Yeah, so Dirk was introduced by Mike.
Yep.
It's a little addition to kind of break up the pace and have some
Yeah,
fun with it.
the Dirk and all of Lund's interesting facts.
Interesting fact, but you're real. You can look them up.
Mm-hmm.
Here it is.
This is
The Blunders.
the blunders in Boo Booville.
So this story is again from Phil. It started very differently, and it's kind of, developed along the way. It initially was a very same thing set in a
France.
French town, and
18th century
yeah,
France.
right. So the visual tone was all there, but his story was more about a competition, like almost like a high school competition. And so then through development, which Don worked very hard with us on, it became the story it is now, and we think that it's just awesome.
Yeah, it's really. I think Phil brought a very good concept about the science competition and how to use science and learning patience. So it was easy to build on it, and all of this business is really funny because it's just typical like Bob and Larry, Mickey Mousey stuff.
Yep. When I was a kid, I had one of those little Radio Shack sets, that had little springs in it, with wires, and you could make your own, alarm. You could make your own, siren. You could do all this fun stuff with it, but you had to work through these steps very
Exactly, yeah.
excruciatingly.
And that's
to get it to work right.
what Jacques doesn't do. I mean, in this scene, we see that Jacques, it looks like he's smart fella, but he takes shortcuts. Like he just used bubble gum instead of glue, just the gum instead of glue, and he's like working very quickly and hastily, and you can tell that whatever he's working on might not really work. Just the pie.
And Maurice wants to be his good friend, but he can't just because it's just too rough. This is we're about to go into a bit of a song, and the song actually all the songs in here are written by a new writer for us, Mark Steele.
Did a good job.
And these songs really elevated the piece. I know when we went into it, we were like, we've got to have some great songs if we're going to get this kind of French provincial town,
Yeah. And we know that our fans love songs, and we love songs here at Big Idea. So to have an opportunity to work in a musical, I'm considering this show like it's a musical. It's if not, it's almost
pretty
a
close.
musical.
Yeah, I don't know what the ratio has to be to qualify, but
Yeah.
Lyle, of course, was one of the last big musicals we did.
But
this
we
one's really
have
close.
a nice variety of songs here. This is also like an example of inventions that Jacques worked on, but he didn't have time to finish it, or like he tried to finish them quickly.
This location has to have had the most props of any Veggie show.
Oh,
I tell you. Just so many gadgets and gizmos and things that had to move, and
This is a diesel machine, by the way.
You don't even take time to be friends.
Yeah.
Here you go. He's gonna go a little emotional here.
because he's not being a good friend.
Yeah. Suddenly, it's a song.
From Paris to Toledo.
I love the animation here when Bob gets lifted. It's like, what's happening here? What's happening to me?
I love how this all sets up, so you really have no idea what's about to happen.
Yeah.
But
It's kind of like,
it's interesting.
and there's like, you get a little uncomfortable here, and then like there is a pause. See, like a
John,
pause.
you are king of the pauses.
I love pauses.
Loves the pause.
Comedy is at the pause.
Hold, and pause.
Exactly. I like this is a really good song, and this show too has Bob and Larry as good friends, and they just have a little bit of the cat and mouse relationship. Also, kind of like the Sneeze song too. This is what I like about the show too, is we're going to our classic Bob and Larry comedy.
Yep. You know, there's one of the things about veggies is that they don't hold up very well if they're hopping and talking, or hopping and singing, or in this case, running and singing. So on that last scene, if you'll notice that Todd Carter, our storyboard artist, gave Jacques Larry a skateboard so that he could move across the frame, and you could track him singing while he's moving very fast.
Also, it helps with him being frantic and trying to do everything quickly.
Yep.
To be skating and gliding.
I love
the pie group.
this little trio.
Yeah.
Another pause by John Waba.
Yep. For a lot of pauses and swish. Pauses and swishes. Here's the swish, man. Okay.
These are fun.
We added a chicken sound here. Make sure that our audience know it's actually these are eggs. But we didn't explain why they're square. It's just, you know, we're trying.
Yeah, we actually had one that explained the square egg concept. This was from an earlier draft, and it was way far out. So now that we just have square eggs, and that's just the way it is. That's just how it works.
It's like we have to. You have to believe us for that one.
This idea of a phone that he only built one.
Yeah, this is funny too. The platypus. This is from Todd Carter.
Okay, so this was initially. See, the first two were written out exactly what those inventions would be, and then this one was just written something really weird.
Yeah.
And
So
look
at the platypus
it
here.
came a platypus.
He's
with an
just sitting
umbrella.
down, like, you know, what happened?
Well, yeah.
Oh no! Chuck, what are we going to do now?
Just a little note. I love Jimmy's little pencil in his ear.
I want to
his
say this
costume.
is this is Chuck Vollmer design.
All right, this is meant to remind you of a moment.
With the sheep and the fountain
Dancing around, singing a song with a girl named Belle.
in a movie. Happens in France.
So yeah, we had a great time lifting that.
Yeah. Just a touch, you know.
All
to
right,
tell
here
you.
goes. The song is gonna change.
Suddenly,
Big number.
suddenly it's jazz.
Look at him kicking it back here.
I like this dance. Good job, Dan, from the animation
Look
crew.
at him go. No arms or legs, but you know exactly how they're dancing.
Yep. This is really fun shot too. Just going up to the sky, looking down at him.
And those are very hard to do, John. You guys did a great job because getting our characters carried on the shoulders of another character.
It's
very hard to
excellent,
do.
excellent animation work.
There he goes, and you buy it.
And it's like everybody's like
Oh look,
watching.
there's a crowd.
See, there will be a sheep like looking at the crowds. Like, what are they talking about?
And
So are you ready for the next scene? Gotta put
so
your
on one
seatbelts
draft
on.
of the script, we actually started right here.
Yeah, the show started here
Right here.
at some point with the experiment, the flying experiment.
And what we found is that it made us take way too long to have to go back and set up Bob and Larry's relationship, you know, and a lot of other things. And so we felt like if we did some of that at the beginning, then this scene would be even more entertaining because you know that he was
I love this
yanking
going through
his
the cloud.
friend through the air.
And here we're introducing a lot of new things, like the Luxembourgian castle. Who lives there? There's a mad scientist live there. Pipe organ music. Ta-da!
This the flying machine was designed by Chuck Vollmer,
Mm-hmm.
and he actually worked out a lot of the mechanics to make the thing workable. So the little pulley on the back moves up and down, and there's a belt to drive the copter thing up top.
Yeah.
And it was fun because he built a final first, right, and then came back to make the broken one.
Yeah, he made the good one first.
Yep.
This is an SOS joke here.
And his little box is broken, and oh, there goes a wing.
See, the tension is rising.
Very.
Something bad is gonna happen. This, I like this. The one thing I liked about this scene is just put the tension up right there.
Right into it. And then this little, he's not even concerned about his friend. He's only concerned about his airplane.
But Bob is alive.
Oh,
Thank goodness.
Could you fall a little faster?
we in the mix went round and round on the falling sound. So when the plane's falling from the sky, and I was sure that we could pull it off. I wanted a classic Looney Tunes fall, you know, the Bugs Bunny or any of the others have made. That just the
Yeah, I actually, when you're out, I ended up whistling it in the mic.
Did you whistle it?
Yeah, I whistled
Okay.
this one.
It sounds great.
Adam
The bundle is-
recorded it.
there
I
it
think
is.
he cleaned it up a little bit.
Yep.
Yummy. But you can't quit.
All right.
You're my
So
friend.
now they're gonna not be friends anymore.
Yeah, they're not happy. Maurice is not happy for sure.
Is this about the relay
He
race?
just, I mean, he just crashed out of an
But
airplane.
yeah,
So
Jacques is really is not bad, but he just doesn't understand sometimes that the consequences of his impatience,
Mhm.
and he gets stuck with his own, you know, his own ways and his own things.
He dropped it.
I like this one.
It also took a while to get those goggles right, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
For Bob, it's those big eyes of his. It's hard to get goggles on them,
I love this trumpet. At some point, we had a really nice trumpet sound here, and the day of the mix, I was listening to it, and I was just like, Kurt, this trumpet is just too good for French peas. You gotta go back and record like a lousy.
So the next morning, he came in the office early
Yep.
and laid this down, and then put it in the mix. We got over there and pressed play, and here it came. And oh man,
It was
we had a
great.
good hearty laugh.
He's very proud of
Because
that.
he's he's such
lousy
a talented
trumpet.
musician that to have him play lousy is, you know, you gotta push
Yeah.
him a little bit.
He did a great job doing the lousy stuff.
So the Boo Boo Bird. Let's talk about that because that was not in a draft of the script. In fact,
it's not.
It was a late edition that you and Todd came up with.
It was very late edition where we know we're gonna use some we know the inventions that we're working with, and we have like a sunflower theme in the show, and I wanted to add more purpose to the sunflower seeds or the sunflower itself.
Yep.
And the thought came to me when I was just outside in the backyard, eating breakfast in the weekend one morning, and just was surrounded by birds coming to eat those sunflowers. She was like, "Hey, maybe we can put more purpose to the sunflower and have a bird who's like the pride of this town, who's been lost for some reason, but the town is really eager to bring back the Boo Boo."
Mm-hmm. And thus the Boo Boo Bird was born. And
Exactly.
Immediately we had to get a drawing of it,
Mm-hmm.
and it's really goofy. We'll get to see the Boo Boo Bird more later.
Yeah.
Okay, so now the Spooky Woods. These woods have actually been used in a number of our shows.
Yes,
Just
we
tweaked
always
and
have
modified in
woods.
some way, but we used them from Lord of the Beans. We used it in
Wizard
Wizard of Oz, and a little bit in Huck.
Yeah.
Same kind of. So they just keep tweaking them and making them a little different.
It's almost a tradition in every show.
Bum bum bum.
That's a nice reveal here. I love this wide angle. Gets a little spooky.
I was watching this with David, and my 8-year-old, and he got nervous during this part.
It gets a little spooky here.
But it's okay because it turns funny. Different.
He bounces like a.
This is a joke that
football.
in the boards was here, and I didn't think would play, but it's pretty funny.
Yeah, it was almost. He was upside down with the hat on his other end.
Very funny. On his foot, maybe.
Yeah, his toes.
Another great location, much like Jacques' lab, with lots of stuff.
Yeah, this is a
And
beautiful place.
So
It's a little scary here, but hang on with
this
us.
is kind of supposed to be a little Beauty and the
Yeah.
Beast-ish. We see here's the Beast coming out. No, no.
And it builds up a little bit.
Looks
Builds
scary,
up.
scary, scary.
The claws.
Claw. Oh wait, that's a pipe wrench.
Hey, that's a nice guy.
And in fact, this place is probably the coolest place ever.
Look at the toys. This is
Happy
the
Robots.
sweeper and the butler.
Yeah.
And look at
this.
that. Isn't
This
that
is
beautiful?
Joe Spatiford. He just
This is the
had a
washing
blast in here.
machine. You see the clothes go and get washed and dried in the same place. This is like a sunflower theme. You see the rug here.
Okay, yeah.
Looks
John's
like a
convinced that everybody
sunflower.
can see the sunflower.
Yeah.
If you can see that, be sure to email us at customer service and say, I saw the sunflower and I got the link.
Yeah,
'cause
I'm sure. This
I
whole
just-
castle is actually is designed
It's
as
all sunflowers
sunflower.
everywhere.
The rug from the door to the
Oh.
living room. Wow, look at that.
Sunflower.
The rug looks like a stem, and this living room, if you look at the rug, it's like the sunflower head. So we wanted to stay with that theme.
When we were working on the sunflower thing, do you remember when Brian came in? Brian Roberts, who was the associate producer helping out on this one, he came in and said, "Hey guys, I got a sunflower in my backyard. It is fascinating." And he wanted to bring us out to look at his sunflower so we could study how they're, it's such a
Yeah.
unique flower. And we never actually got to do it. I feel bad now.
You know, Leon Meringue. Ta-da.
My hero.
Two words.
This this mad scientist, we shopped around a little bit about who he could be.
Mm-hmm.
But who was he? He was cast as a couple different things before he became Charlie Pincher.
Yes, I thought of Scooter, but Scooter is just too funny. I needed an element of craziness.
And he's really hard to understand.
Yeah, yeah. I needed an element of like seriousness and yet loopy.
I love all that. That's a really fun gag. That you and Joe worked on that for a while to get that huge machine.
Exactly. Yeah. Joe designed it. And this is when we introduced kind of like the solution. This is our device to fix Larry's or Jacques' impatience problem. And it seems like this, mad scientist went through the same learning experiment. And here we talk about, we get a verse from the Bible talking about haste makes mistakes.
I am a huge fan. I like the whole Bible's not great, but the Proverbs, I love Proverbs. There's so much wisdom in them, and so it was really exciting to find
I like this song too.
a great proverb for this moment.
I had a crazier song right here. You guys might find it in the deleted scenes. But
You will.
Yeah, we had then Mike recorded this one, tamed it down a little bit.
In the credits, you'll have to be able to look up that song to look at its title. It's very funny. So this exit, we actually had a bit of dialogue that went further, where they kind of talked a little longer, and we had it become the next.
Shake. Let's shake on it.
And it ended up getting trimmed down a little bit too.
Yeah, this actually line, let's shake on it, came down a day before we recorded the audio, because we're doing some rewrites here and with Mike, and I just came out, let's just have him shake. It's a good song too.
This is one of my favorites.
Mark Steele wrote this song as well.
Lots of fun little gadgets here too.
It's really about just Jacques as a little kid in a toy store, or he's just having fun with his little
Much
toys.
like you or I at Home Depot on the weekends.
Or yeah, exactly. Or Circuit City.
Love all the toys.
Yeah.
Like a lawnmower with an umbrella.
Yeah, it's like everything here is just like a source of fun element. He's like, oh, I have work to do here.
What am I doing? I'm singing the fast part.
I like this.
A lot of these little tools like that
Yeah.
are just really fun to kind of come up with, little ropes and pulleys and.
Yeah. You see, we have pliers all, like.
So
this.
he's attempting to water the seed and get it to grow quickly, right?
Yeah, water, light, even
I don't
the
get the
magnet.
magnet.
Yeah, the magnet's like supposed to pull the stems maybe quicker. The magnet's not working. Nothing is working.
He's gonna have to just be
You
patient.
have to wait for the seed to grow. There's no other ways around it, Jacques. Yeah, this is one of his low points. Not the lowest point yet.
Mike did such a great job with Jacques, of course, and Larry. But then in these songs, he had I just was so thrilled with the performance.
Incredible performance. Good acting.
Here's his buddies.
Just coming up with all these goofy ideas.
And ultimately not going to work.
Yeah. You can tell just from looking at the blueprint. Yeah, that's not gonna work.
That's too much.
But they're such a
So this is
fun element
this scene
here.
was really the end of the line, because we've gone through all these beats. He lost his friend. He got his
Yeah.
book, but then he got this seed and it didn't grow.
Yeah, so he lost Maurice. The seed is not growing. He thought it's a good shortcut. It's not working. And now he's kicking out, like
There
his
goes his
friends are kind of like breaking up with him too. So it's like this is his very lowest point. It's like he lost everything. Only thing he has is just a bucket of dirt. He puts it by this window where the sun is.
He decides to start over.
He's starting over. He wants to build like this next blueprint. I think it's a bird condo building. Yeah, this one. So funny if you can see it. Goes to night, working all evening. Remember?
Oh, and his buddy, who's there as
His
scale
best
for the drawing.
Yeah. His mama.
Here's Mama.
See the little tune from the music box.
But what happens overnight?
Things happen overnight. The seed grows.
And in reality, sunflowers actually grow very quickly. So
Yeah, but
we didn't mind pushing.
most probably not the salted sunflower that you can buy from the store to eat. Don't try that.
Right.
It's not gonna
That's
work.
never gonna work.
Just don't tell her we didn't warn you.
It's working.
It's a beautiful moment here. He gets a little bit of hope.
Bob's a little mystified, doesn't understand what's
He's kind
going
of
on.
like doesn't. It's really uncomfortable too. He's kind of like, the two friends still want to be friends, you know, but they're kind of like, you know, not
You
there
weren't very
yet.
nice to me, so I'm gonna.
Yeah, I'm
go
just gonna
stay
leave.
away.
Bye bye.
Oh, he's got to look at his photos of mom. So this song was another one that got worked on a lot right at the end to get the message right, as we were trying to teach patience in something that had to do more with diligence.
Yeah, exactly.
And,
But willing to wait.
So the lyrics got tweaked, and
And adding mama here, his mom, is something we added at the very late in the game too. It was supposedly all Larry.
it was going to just be Larry singing.
Yeah,
Right. Yeah.
From beginning to end. And actually, this is Mike Naraki's idea to what if we have mom here, and this is why we went to the 2D sequence to get a glimpse of like Larry when he was a little boy wants to just to eat the apples, but mom wants to spend more time and cook, make a nice apple pie.
And this little animation sequence was done by Brian Roberts.
Mm-hmm.
Did all
Neil.
the storyboarding,
Yeah.
and Neil cut it together for us. And well, of course, Joe did
Joe
all
did the
painting.
painting. Todd did the drawing. I like it, like he's singing while he's walking and nobody can hear him. It's just like
Very
a nice,
musical
yeah,
style
yeah,
thing, you know.
nice style. And then there's a change here. We see the music box music in the background, the notes. There is a change happening in Jacques' heart now. He's taking care of his busy, crowded, messy place. And over time, the seed, the sunflower keeps growing. Now he's using glue instead of gum. You know?
And this thing here, this baguette race, figured in more prominently previously.
Yeah.
it was a pretty big plot device in one of the drafts, and ultimately got trimmed down to just something that they both chat about at the beginning and end of the story. But it's still fun, the idea.
This is a nice
guys
moment here when
getting-
the sunflower grows and opens.
There it is.
And this is like, you know. And now he's
There his
also
shop goes.
he's
Hey.
patiently cleaning up his place.
So this was actually pitched when Mark pitched the song. He did a whistle pass where he whistled through the last chorus or so, and we thought, oh, the whistle is just so much fun. We got to find a way to keep it. So we introduced Bob,
Yeah.
kind of whistling
He's
outside,
kinda like
outside there.
His old friend kind of keeping an eye on him. This is a fun piece here.
I love this.
It's like nobody. Okay, how does it work? Even the mayor's like not getting it. Madam did a good job. See, I love this little gesture.
Yeah, Madame Blueberry is so much fun. Jackie Ritz again did this for us. She's
great.
always entertaining as Blueberry.
She's a good actor.
She actually did some singing for us too.
And oh, here's the big reveal. Check this out. Ta-da!
When we first made this
Look at the shoes.
this boobette thing, it wasn't feminine enough, so they went back and
Joe
there's
Spatterford.
some eyelashes.
I added the wig and the eyelashes. Joe Spatterford gave her the shoes. Just looking up in the
They're
sky.
gonna come. And see, this is a little echo. These guys, even his compatriots in the pie group, are impatient as well.
Yeah, they don't want to wait forever.
Oh, it's never gonna work.
Yeah.
It might have. I mean, do you think if they had just left it there long enough, John, it would have pulled the bird back?
I don't think so. This
Aw.
this Boobette is bad news.
It's never gonna happen.
Yeah. See, it's not well done too. Like he's gonna give it a nudge. It's made out of rubber band.
Ah, she's after me. I love that line. Oh.
Yeah, we had also a little scene here where the cage itself, Jimmy got stuck in the cage and.
That's right. After it crashed,
Mm-hmm.
I forgot about that. It was
Well,
an extended thing.
Yeah, we kind of like took it out.
Crashed, and he gets clamped into it, and then the cage falls apart, and it's
Yeah.
just all total disaster.
I just wanted to bring Jacques earlier. Just come back to the with the sunflowers. Let's bring the boo boo quickly. This is actually I did the sound of some boo-boos. So this boo-boo is played by myself, and Phil Vischer did the most of the boo-boos.
He did, but John totally set this in motion. It was so funny when we first pitched at it. We were like, what does it sound like? Oh, I know exactly.
It sounds like this.
Yep. I said, okay.
I hope that works.
Here they go. The big. Now this is the crowning moment for Kurt's score. I couldn't believe.
And Kurt plays trumpet very nicely too. So there's a lot of live trumpets in this score.
There it is, the working flying machine.
It's nice and
It's been
smooth.
glued and attached properly.
And you know, his bed invention from scene 1 now is becoming, you know, the seed dispenser, so to speak.
And what's cool here is now the town has to learn to be patient. Not just Jacques, the whole town has to be patient.
Everybody
to wait
is,
after they plant their seed.
is lending a hand. So
All right,
to
here we go.
speak.
Another VeggieTales joke.
Yeah, right.
High fives.
3
All right, here it
months
goes.
later.
We hotly debated this one.
Yeah, I think it's working greatly. Come down and there's,
How long should they wait?
yeah. Yeah, how long will it?
2 days, 3 months, 3 years? I don't know.
Yay!
Here they come. You know, this is something that the production guys did a great job with because the script calls for a whole flock of these things, and we were
Yeah.
like, wow, that's really tough.
Mm-hmm.
But they put out some
Yeah,
really
we don't.
fun little bit of animation.
We don't usually put a lot of crowd simulation, and the guys, our animation studio, did a good job on that one.
And there you got the hat.
This is also a nice design from
Fabulous hat.
Joe Spataford.
Leon Meringue.
How come?
He's the same guy. You know, that figured in a couple versions of the script where this idea of an aha. We talked about a reclusive inventor for a while.
Like this guy.
And then
in
I
the
said, hey
back.
guys, could we have him come back at the end just to kind of tie him into the story a little more? And so here he came. And it was,
The butler also is so funny with the boo-boos in the back. Like there's a lot of funny stuff happening. It's a good thing that, you know, Leon Meringue himself, the inspiration of Jacques, wants to take us, you know, the plane for a spin.
that means he trusts that he's built it
Yeah.
properly.
And did you see the
Learned his lesson.
baguette?
There they go. They're on their baguette
The
race.
baguette race.
It's a short
is
race
on.
because here they are. They come back.
And they're done.
They're done. Short race. They probably won.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring
Oh,
everybody.
there's Boo Bird chasing the robot butler.
You know, everybody
very
comes
busy shot.
together here in one big ending shot.
Oh, I love it.
Nice show.
All right, here we are back with Junior.
Yeah, and
Got
a cookie.
his cookie.
That's nice.
We're over here by Qwerty to talk
love
about what
chocolate
we
chip.
learned today.
Bob. Apparently Bob likes chocolate chip.
We got to use the song just straight.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't mess with it.
Look at Junior here. He's gonna like
that.
tease Bob. Look how he's okay. Be patient.
Bob is so
Bob doesn't like
Flexible.
the song. He's gonna like, okay, it's the song and no cookies for me.
Let's see if we have a verse. We do have a verse.
So
Yeah.
after waiting patiently, Abraham
It's a good
received
verse.
what was promised. Hebrews 6:15.
And a
Wow.
second verse.
2 verses.
We felt like because we were teaching patience in 2 different places,
Yeah.
Mike suggested this verse. He said, hey guys, what about 2 verses?
Because-
We've never done it before, but
Yeah.
could we do it, you know?
There's a lesson really about waiting on God's,
In
you
our
know,
first
plan
story,
and God's
we learned that
promises.
Abraham
And
Sarah
another
had
lesson
to
is
wait
just
a
about
long
not being
time to get
hasty.
what God
We
promised.
also did a first time thing. We put a lot more personality with Cordy. That was
Yeah,
John's idea.
yeah, it was kind of like, you know, playful, more playful. Because he's a character. Cody is not a prop. He is a character.
But when you're patient,
And yes, we know
you
he's
take
due
the
for an
time to
upgrade,
do
but
things right.
we're just not sure which direction.
Well,
to
he got
take
some
him.
RAM this show.
He got some rams.
Got some RAM, so hopefully we'll get more something else next
Junior
time.
has learned his lesson and is now telling all of us in the audience and the kids at home
Yeah.
About those
what he learned.
Oh yeah. Okay, he's ready.
Junior's really cute in this show.
And Larry gets a cameo.
Wow, what's this?
Didn't belong to
Don't you
anybody
say?
today.
Oh, he
Poor
ate
Bob.
the cookie.
Oh.
Oh man, Junior's trying to cover up.
Gotta
Like,
go.
let's wrap the show.
Well,
Okay.
remember,
I'll get
God
my
made you
cookies
Wrap it
special.
up.
And
God
he
made you
loves you very
special.
much.
And
Goodbye.
he loves you very much.
All right, here he goes.
Can you wait?
Hey.
Yay!
Yay, John Waba.
Woo!
John, great
This-
job.
Thanks, man. You too. Everybody. I mean, you'll see him in the credits. Did an awesome job. Good job, Chris. You got the beating
thanks,
here.
man.
Boom, boom, boom.
That's my life as a producer, just taking a beating.
That's a funny one. Jean Trausch did the animation for the credits.
These credits
here.
are the most fun credits we've ever had, I think.
We had
Just
fun
great.
with
Brian
them.
Roberts stepped in to help producing on this show, and just did a great job.
Phil
He's
Vischer.
actually at home right now. They had a new baby in their house.
Phil
and so-
Vischer and Mike Naraki did a great job in the acting. Very good performance. Lisa did the song for us, Delilah. Everybody in the cast really did an
There's our
awesome
kids.
job. Hey, did a lot of kids. This is
Well-
again the story development, great work. The whole
Todd
team.
Carter just totally took this one by the horns. He had to work very fast. This whole show, everyone had to work a little faster than they wanted to.
Yeah.
It was just
Neil Gowan did a
a
great
little extra
job.
work. Neil, this is his first time to be editor on VeggieTales, right?
Yep, he's
He stepped up and brought a
did
great
a good
story
job.
for us. We were really, really pleased.
Yeah.
We also got a new production unit here. We went to a new animation studio named
Hoo-hoo.
Hoo-Hoo.
You'll
which
see
is
the bug at
you'll
the
see
end.
the bug. That's the name of it in New Zealand. So John and I got to go to New Zealand to hand this thing
Yep.
to their fine team there,
Very talented group of guys
who
actually.
just gave of themselves to make this great show.
Yeah.
We were
And it
pleased
shows.
to have them, and they actually brought along some help. You'll see that in the additional animation. Slimbo Jones, which is actually a little group of some former Big Idea guys who helped animate for some of the scenes.
Yep.
So it was really fun for all of us. Their lighting team, wow. It just every time they sent us something back, it was just, oh, that's beautiful. Let's go.
Adam did a good job in sound effects and the mix,
Yep. Had a great time with him.
songs.
The guitars. How about them guitars?
There's an S. Oh, you guys weren't. I thought you were joking. You added the S.
It's guitars because he played two kinds of guitars, and we want to be clear about the guitars. All right.
Oh man.
We missed the name of the song up there, but the name of the song is crazy long for the
Yeah, we'll let you guys
crazy.
rewind it and
crazy scientist guy.
and finally,
Oh, a pea fell through.
you gotta have a French P. That's
All right, guys. Well, thanks for listening. Hope you enjoyed the show. We had a great time getting to be with you on this, and we'll see you next time.
Yep. I hope you guys liked it as much.
John,
as
again,
as I
great
did.
job. Congratulations.
You too, likewise, Chris.
See you, Bob and Larry. We'll catch you next time. Spin
Don't-
the sign around.
Don't get
Don't
stuck
hit
in
by
the
it.
D.
Look out, look out.
Watch
It
the D.
happens every time.
Watch the D. Oh
Oh.
man, I
Yeah,
told
you
you.
think Bob would learn to not stand by the D.
We should oil it.
There he is. All right, guys. See you later.
Bye bye.
Okay, Larry, it's time for the theme song.
Hi, everybody. This is Mike Naraki.
And Tim Hodge.
I'm a director on Minnesota Cuke and The Search for Noah's Umbrella.
And I wrote it.
That's right. And you are the original director of the original Minnesota Cuke and The Search for Samson's Hairbrush.
Yes, and I wrote that one too.
Yeah.
So this was it was fun to do a follow-up.
And the fun thing about this, too, is that this is the first time Tim will have seen this in any stage.
Right, because when I wrote the last draft of it, I handed it in and went away for a long time, and then I have not seen the storyboards. I have not heard the voice track or anything. So
This is your first time, and it'll be interesting to try
my maiden voyage.
Your maiden voyage, and it'll be hard. What I'm hoping is that as you're watching it,
that
you're
I
not
like
tempted.
it.
Well, that you like it, number one, and that you're not tempted to just watch it and not talk, because otherwise, this is a commentary track. So
Yeah, I should have reread the script last night just so I'm refresh myself with the story, so I'm not trying to pay attention. Like, what's going to happen next?
But a little bit of history on this. Obviously, Minnesota Cuke was a character that came out first in a video game.
Yeah.
That our web development group did, and then Terry Pafanis, actually at the time, he was the general manager of the company, said, "Hey, we think it would be great to actually make this into a video." So we're like, okay, great, that'll be fun. So we did our first episode, and we found that it was a really good tool to be able to tell Bible stories that have certain difficulties in them.
Yes. It's like this one, the story of Noah's Ark. Even though we paint pictures of it on nursery walls, there's a lot of unhappy things that go on in that story.
Yeah, when you flood the world and everybody dies.
It's hard to make a song out of that.
Exactly. So there's some happy parts with the animals 2 by 2 and and the dove. And
yeah,
the
and
whole
the
thing.
same thing with the story of Samson. I mean, we all think of the strong man. Well, that's the good part of it, but there's a lot of death and destruction in that as well.
Well, I don't think you've seen the countertops either.
No.
So Larry has this bag on his head because he's ashamed. So
Shh, let me watch this.
I'll turn it up for you. Yeah. So, but you know, the lesson is a theme in confidence, and the idea that we don't need to be afraid about what other people think about us. We just need to worry about what God thinks about us. And so Larry is ashamed because he was singing over his lunch, singing a prayer over his lunch, and people laughed at him. So.
Oh yeah. Okay, that was in the original. I think I took a stab at the countertop script, but I remember it was still going around. And
Right.
Adjusting the teaching language when I finished. So
Yeah.
Just before I dip my first nugget, I bowed my
So,
head and sang a little
Yeah, so then after the first Minnesota Cuke and the Search for Samson's Hairbrush came out, we just thought, wow, it'd be great to do a follow-up with this. It's such a great format to retell Bible stories.
And we love the Indiana Jones films to parody.
yeah,
Of course,
exactly.
I think I used most of my jokes in that one. I couldn't. It's like, I can't parody that part again because.
they laughed at me, Bob.
So we had worked up an outline about 4 years ago.
Yeah, right after the first one came out.
Right after the first one came out, I pitched this outline of Noah's umbrella, and at the time I think it was the bad guys were the Norwegians who wanted Norwegian cruise boat company who actually wanted to flood the earth. Oh no, they wanted a cruise boat that was that could not be destroyed by a hurricane or anything. So they didn't want to so they were looking for the original Noah's Ark. And just because it was so seaworthy. So, but anyways, the story just took a lot of different twists and turns in development. And it was fairly rapid too. By the time we said, "Hey, we're going to make this show,"
Did you catch that? I'm not sure. All the Indiana Jones films start on a mountain. That's why I put that in the script to start.
Oh,
on the
very
side.
nice. Well, this ends on a mountain too. It starts on a mountain, and ends on a mountain.
Oh, cool.
So, yeah.
Oh, great! Give it away. Oh, you're using the treehouse from before.
Yeah, it's the treehouse.
That's your daughter's drawing there of Petunia.
Yep.
And the horse is one of my daughter's drawings she did when she was very, very young.
Awesome. Yeah, I remember. I'd forgotten that was Allie's drawing. So, and actually, Allie is in the show too. She's Allie and Michael.
Really?
They sing the Spanish song.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so they're so really well. And then there's the mounted muskie. When I was growing up, my grandparents had a cabin in the Pocono Mountains in Pennsylvania.
Poconos.
And the big thing out there was muskie fishing. Of course, there was pike and pickerel, and that's what I had caught a couple pickerel in my day. But
That's funny.
Yeah, that's a funny looking muskie, right? But there was a guy up the road who had a mounted muskie, and it was enormous. And I always used to frighten my small brother. Mark, because it was at the time that Jaws just came out, so everybody was afraid to go in the water, and my little brother Mark, all I'd have to say is,
I was afraid to go in the swimming pool.
Oh yeah. Well, imagine being in a river, in a lake, and just after Jaws came out, and we had this neighbor with this huge mounted muskellunge, on his wall, and I said, "Hey Mark, muskie," and that's all I'd have to say to him, and he'd jump out of the river as fast as he could go. So, but yes, here we are swinging on the vine, and. We borrowed from the third Indiana Jones in terms of story structure, where we have the young Indiana and kind of previewing, what he was to become as an adult, obviously he wants to do the right thing. He wants to save, this artifact that belongs to Farmer Brown. Some of the things that we initially wanted to try to do, his fear of worms.
I remember trying to work that in, but it made the opening really.
Yeah, it made it too long, and so we kept the gummy worms. That was just sort of a cute thing. It doesn't really lead anywhere, but it's a nice little, just nice little bit. Yeah,
that's a change. That's funny.
Bob's still counting. And you'll notice too, since the script, we actually have a. The very end of this chase sequence, we sort of economized, and we wanted to avoid having water, so we did a little bit of a difference here. So here, I'll get your reaction to this.
I better like it. Oh yeah, he was in a barrel in the script, right?
Yeah, so now he's in a tire. Oh, and look at that. He's wearing a dress. That's silly.
Always funny.
And now outdoorsman clown wigs. So,
boy, I wish I had written that part. It's funny. You see, after films go to the storyboard, they start taking a life on their own.
Oh yeah. So, But just that visual of Larry in a dress and a wig, you know, we just wanted to kind of highlight just the ridiculousness of it and him being really sensitive to being laughed at. So,
I want to quit.
so and this is very similar to the nose of the original Children's Lake Museum. It's a little brighter. We didn't spend a whole lot of time in it
It's
before.
the same model, isn't it? Or is
Yeah, it's the same. Yeah, it's the same model. We lit it to be a little bit cheerier.
Yeah.
So because we spent a lot of time there.
Yeah, I remember all these paintings on the wall that they were from other shows. You know,
Yeah.
it's bringing back such a flood of memories.
What's this? A package from my old buddy, Professor.
I particularly like the way Warren Muffet turned out, his character model. Mr. Nezer, just kind of as the eccentric rich guy, is a great look on him.
Yeah.
So his
I don't
pants all
think-
pulled up high under
Yeah.
his chin.
I don't think I've seen him with a mustache before.
And Mr. Muffet, this
Yeah, I
is
can't remember. I'm sure all of our characters have had mustaches at one time or the other. I can't remember, but I just love the comb over
Yeah.
and everything. John Waba, who's a co-director on this, and it spent a lot of time in the pre-production phases.
Yeah.
You know, wanted the comb over look for Mr. Nezer. So kind of based off his own experience. Although John does not have a comb over. He's nicely
like
bald,
me.
just like you. Yes.
Yeah, we are shaving cue balls.
No, nothing like that. You see, in my backyard, I'm building a Bible-themed goldfish pond.
That's it. I'm out of here.
No, wait, Min. Hear him out.
Oh, you got a new rug there too.
Well, you know, that is the original rug.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. In fact, it was interesting because it didn't show up on the scene files, and so I actually had to go get the DVD and cue it up and say, oh, kind of like this rug. So I did a screen grab and sent it to Hoo Hoo.
Okay. Yeah, you can see my picture of on the other shot over his shoulder. There's a picture of Samson above the shoulder. Sorry, not shovel, hanging on the wall. That's an etching copy of a Rembrandt.
Oh, nice.
I bought it at an antique store
Oh.
years ago for like $30.
Very cool. I got a signed photograph of Sonny Bono
Noah's Ark?
Yeah,
a
but
number of years ago.
I used it in a show for a while.
I did. Yeah, I did use that, but then we decided to
Oh,
take it out. of
those
the
are
show.
cool. Those are Joe Spatterford illustrations.
Yep, Joe Spatterford illustrations. Yeah. Now, one of the things that we had intended for this scene, but just, you know, it's one of those casualties of production, is Samson's hairbrush was supposed to be in the trophy case because that's where it ended up.
Right.
And we do a little gag here. I can't remember if we've passed it already, but he's brushing his hair with Samson's hairbrush, and then he just kind of tosses it over. So we have that gag.
Oh
but-
yeah, I saw that. I wasn't thinking. I was listening to you rather than watching this.
But initially that we wanted to kind of keep that in the trophy cases, but then, you know, it got through the lighting stage and it was like, whoa, the brush isn't there, and it was too late. But
Well, it shows up at least. So it's,
yeah, it shows up, so we have an ode to it, you know.
Guy that used to be my enemy?
But it's nice.
Friend, Professor Rattan? The guy who just sent me a reel of film from Mexico? That Professor Rattan?
Nope, different one.
Different one.
Of course, that Professor Rattan.
And then
He followed an ancient instruction book.
An instruction.
so and in this episode we spend a whole lot more time in the setup of the plot, because obviously the first Minnesota Cuke was, I don't know, what was it, 18 minutes or something? It was really quick.
Yeah, because it was when we were still doing half-hour shows, and it was only part of the episode because there was that other Junior. As a,
Junior and the Bully.
Yeah,
Although no,
Bully-
I think it was Bully Trouble.
yeah, Bully Trouble.
Bully
was the
Trouble.
title.
Although
Yeah.
I think we were doing 45s by that time, but still. With,
you may be
know,
right,
the
yeah.
Bully Trouble and
Silly Song, yeah.
Yeah, it was much shorter. So this plot, you know, can have a lot more twists and turns to it. So we had to spend a little bit more time setting things up here.
Julia opened another ice cream shop.
But
It's more of a
he's
comment.
off to his first adventure in Mexico.
I go.
Are you sure you want to do this, Min? It sounds
I
a
want to
little
go to
risky.
Mexico.
Rattan might be in trouble. It's the right thing to do.
Be careful, Mr. Minnesota.
Oh, sure.
There might be
Yeah,
other
and
people
you
looking
know, just a
for
word
your
as we get to this next scene, especially it was good to see just notice it's really. Oh yeah, there's a little flashlight gag. Yeah,
Sorry to
we'll talk
interrupt.
about- But I mentioned Hoo Hoo previously, and they are the animation production company that we use, and they're down in New Zealand. So the first Minnesota Cuke was
Done in Canada.
done in Canada, in Toronto. This one was done in New Zealand, and the Kiwis, as they call themselves.
Yeah.
Yes, I did a wonderful job. It looks fantastic.
Yeah, it looks gorgeous.
And you know, we had hoped to go down to hand off the show.
Oh, that would have been fun.
Yes, and
I
we
would've
will
did- I would-
eventually.
I would have put that in my contract. To join
Exactly. And this kind of speaks to the power of, you know, just technology and the internet and the World Wide Web. We were able to manage the whole production just online and on the phones. And
well, I did 20 episodes of 321 Penguins without ever going to India.
without ever going there, yeah. So, but it was just a fantastic job, and just did a really beautiful job on everything.
Now, where did I put it? A postcard? I got a can of film that doesn't like wicker furniture.
He was just here.
I love the. Did you catch the pinata joke? Yeah.
No, I missed the setup for it. I saw the visual side of it.
Yeah, yeah. So and he actually, had quite a take on it.
Oh, come on, Julia! Don't make me do this.
Now this was a fun song.
Yeah, now this is a real song too, isn't it? Like an old.
No, it isn't. Actually, what I ended up doing was rewriting it. I rewrote that song, and then Kurt redid some music. We had a song that we were initially using as sort of a placeholder that we wanted to see if we could use, but it turned out it wasn't public domain. And so we had to rewrite it.
Okay, because I remember I was looking up public domains. I found a really old Mexican folk song, but it didn't fit quite right thematically.
And this was fun, my and you know this, Tim, and your wife is actually of Mexican descent.
Yes, she is
as well. And my wife is Colombian, native Spanish speaker, and so it was fun. And this is the second time I've got to work on a song with her. The first was "Dance of the Cucumber,"
which is my favorite silly song.
Gracias. So this was great just to be able to write it in English and work on Lisa with the Spanish translation and then getting it to rhyme in Spanish. And then my kids got to sing on it, which was even more fun. So that's great. So it's a really cute song. Kurt did a great job with just the instrumentations and instrumentation. I guess that's a singular. And the trumpets, the horns on it. It's got a real nice, authentic sound to it.
Who's doing the voice of the tour guide there?
That's me. That's me.
I was gonna say that sounds familiar. Who is that?
Whose voice is that? It's my boring voice. The trenches you see before you.
Oh, yes, the pyramid turned out gorgeous.
It really did. And if you'll look, Joe Spataford did the design on this. And the name of the town they're in is El Pez, the city of ancient candy dispensers. And so if you look at the design on the pyramid itself, it kind of has a Pez feel to it. You kind of see the little rectangulars on there. So meant to elicit a Pez feeling. And it was fun going through some of the old concept art on this. We had, we were playing off the Pez thing much more. Even those little statues there.
Oh, they're like little dispensers.
Like little Pez dispensers. Yeah.
No, I remember describing this patio area, the courtyard, in the script, and it wasn't. I described it as best as I could, and it still wasn't quite clear. What are they seeing? Because I remember drawing pictures for everyone.
Yeah, Tim, draw us a picture.
It looks like this. Oh.
Yeah. So in reality, the trenches aren't as deep as we would have hoped. The texture map for this scene was enormous. They actually, Joe, I think it must have been a 30 gigabyte texture file. It was absolutely enormous.
I have no idea what that means.
Well, what it is, here, let me explain it to you. A lot of times in 3D,
look at the time.
People know this.
I know.
But in 3D animation, you can model things. Oh, that's the dumpster outside of my window here. So it's trash day on the day that we're doing the commentary. But a lot of the times when they'll apply a texture to a 3D model, it'll be a kind of a smaller texture file that they can kind of repeat over and over again, so you don't have to use a large texture. But the floor,
it could just be one. It wasn't.
Yeah,
something
it was like one, and it had to be very large just because of the way you saw it. So it was enormous, and so it was crashing the computers down in New Zealand, and so they had to.
Well, they need to get better computers.
They had to adjust. So
their computers run counterclockwise, right?
Yeah, they were in counterclockwise. Yes.
Nobody gets that joke. Sorry.
Yes, but it turned out great. That texture of the floor, especially with the little umbrella glow. See, look at that little umbrella. Ah! See, it's a little shimmery.
I wonder if that's the clue. What a beautiful umbrella!
So she takes a little picture and gets kidnapped. This is probably different than it was initially in the script too.
Not much. I think there's some reuse of the set there over and over. How funny. Somebody falling down steps. As long as they're okay.
As long as they're okay. Yeah, if it's cartoon, it's cartoon. That's the flag of the ancient Ottoman Empire.
Yes, I remember looking that up.
We had to be careful here because the flag of Turkey, as authentic as it is the basically the symbol. It's the star and crescent symbol for Islam.
Yes.
And so
we didn't want to make it look like we were taking jabs at anybody.
Yeah, exactly. So we wanted to make sure that, you know, and to be kind of a real clue as well, because you know, if we just gave away the flag of Turkey, you say, oh, okay, well, they're in Turkey. But if you wanted to search a little bit deeper and say, okay, oh, it's the ancient Turkish flag or the ancient Ottoman flag.
Martin, come in, Martin.
Hi, Min. I'm here. What's going on?
They've got Julia, Martin, and I'm left.
Nice
holding the
purse,
bag.
man. Of course, that'll come up later. I'm giving thanks.
I don't know.
I think that chase scene turned out really nice, too.
Yeah, that was fun. Of course, that was the you know, we're big fans of the Indiana Jones films, at least episode 1 and 3. But the fourth one, I think you and I both were quite disappointed in the way it turned out. So it was no moral problem at all trying to find places to make fun of it. Exactly. So that monkey vine scene was one. We were, what?
Yeah.
So
yeah. It's amazing. I can keep up with a speeding car. Okay. Now this joke in here. Okay, about the. Okay, we have this little joke coming up and this was from the original outline way back when.
Oh,
and
yeah.
It's one of these things where, you know, just one of these puns that you put in the outline to get a smile, you know, caught between a rock and a hard place. It's like we had to keep that in.
Yeah,
so,
I wish I could take credit for that, but no, that was Mike's joke from his first one-page outline, and I gotta keep that joke no matter what. But I think you originally had it in the earlier, like when
oh yeah, it was
It was an earlier clue. So
right, it was an early clue. Yeah. Here we go. Wait. Gotta watch this.
Between a rock and a hard place.
See, and it's a little sitar rim shot there.
Yeah, and mugging the camera, always good.
Yeah. It's a long way to go for a pun.
You can never go too far for a pun.
Okay, now when he marches off to Turkey, we probably had no less than like 10 different alternate lines of what he was going to say, and
Well, Turkey,
prepare to be served. And I can't remember, like, there was at least 10 other lines that he said there. We wanted to get, like, 10 quippy lines.
Yeah,
you know,
I don't even remember which one I originally wrote, but you have to end a scene like that. And marching off, you've got to have a...
Yeah, you got to have a button on it. And I can't remember. We had a lot of buttons.
I'm just an ordinary supervillain kind of guy.
Now, I think in your original script, Wicker Song had 2 verses.
Yes.
And, you know, and as we were editing through, we needed to cut this thing down to exactly 45 minutes, which we did. It just comes in under 45 minutes. And it's one of those things where, you know, it was a nice, the song was really nice in 2 verses, but after 1 verse, we got the idea he was a bad guy.
Now, I said hadn't seen any of this. I said, step back. I storyboarded this part.
Oh,
and
that's
started
right.
Looking
very,
I was...
Because you worked with Todd on the storyboards.
Yeah, he was needing a little help, and I had some free time, and I was saying, this looks familiar. Oh, yeah, that's right. I drew it.
This is another scene that got cut a little shorter. He had initially, Cuke had a conversation with Martin after this.
Oh, yeah.
But again, it was a nice scene, and when taken alone, but you know, in the context of the whole show, to get things, you know, keep it moving, you know, we cut it, and I think we're gonna put it as an Easter egg in the DVD, so you'd be able to hunt around for it and find that lost scene as an Easter egg. And I think we were also thinking about putting Wicker's the second verse for Wicker's song in there as
thank you,
as an Easter egg, but I don't know if it was ever boarded, so that may not make it make it in there.
You should offer it as a ringtone or something.
Yeah.
Well, you know, you're talking about cutting out things, and it's not usually because it's necessarily bad or it's not funny, but when you're putting together a story, you know, for video or film, so much of it is rhythm.
Yeah.
And if anything starts to slow down, no matter how funny it is, like we're getting off track here.
Yeah. And it can get pretty painful to cut things too, because when you're looking at because that little conversation was real nice. It was a really nice teaching moment, and it really reiterated the teaching. But yeah, when you look at it in context, it's like, okay, well, we got that point across really well. So, and it, you know, just adds more time, so it needs to go.
I remember we cut out a whole verse in Little Joe. Madame Blueberry had a song.
Yeah.
And we cut out about half of that song.
Yeah.
It was painful at first because they were funny.
Yeah, exactly. And it, you know. makes sense in the end.
Yes, really wicked. He's a
But
really,
the voice for Wicker was really fun arriving at because when we did the initial storyboards, and when we do storyboards, we'll do a rough read through, where as many voices, and typically, Phil and I do so many voices, we'll just, kind of sit down with, mics, in our office and read through the script, and then we'll use that as our base for the story reel. Well, obviously, Lunt is playing both Wicker and Rattan. And so Phil just delivered it in his regular Mr. Lunt voice, both characters, and it was just thoroughly confusing in the storyboards because they're slightly different in their rendered form. Their mustaches are different colors. Their mole is on the different sides of their face, and Wicker's got a little bit of red hair and a red tie. But yeah, it was really hard to distinguish them in the boards, and so it's like, we got to have Wicker's voice be different. And playing around with a couple different ideas. Do we get a new actor? Do we have Phil?
No, I think this works really well. It's
so
just enough.
It's
you
just
believe,
enough.
You can believe that Larry wouldn't quite pick up on it.
Exactly, and that was a trick. You have to fool Larry about it, and just his name is Wicca, and he's got a little bit of a W thing going on. Was a great delivery. I remember when Phil was doing this voice in the booth, we were all just cracking up. It was perfect. And I think he tried some other kind of variations on Lunt's voice.
Well, you got to be careful when you're doing a speech impediment because you don't want anybody to think you're making fun of.
Right, exactly.
But this is just like a little kid voice.
Exactly.
My kids both started out with trouble with the awes.
The awes,
and you outgrow it.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, so do I.
It's the Elmer Fudd thing. That gag turned out great. I laughed out loud when I read that in the script.
That stage looks familiar.
Yes.
Is that from Esther?
I think it's from Esther. Yeah, or at least based off the one from Esther. That's the Puppies Are Cuddly.
Yeah. These look like some new textures on it, but yeah, that's a.
Now this was really difficult, and we went through this scene quite a few times in storyboards because of, Cuke has to be confused. As to who is who.
It was hard in the script form.
Yeah.
To try to explain that Cuke's going to be, but you got confused reading it. You
don't
want the audience to be confused.
Yeah. And so really, shooting it in a way where the audience can see exactly what's going on, and then hiding Petunia and Wicker from Rattan, or Petunia and Rattan from Wicker.
You've confused me already.
Yeah, I'm confused. So just from a staging standpoint, it was, just really crazy to get through all this. So this was boarded several times and edited several times.
That works going on the other side of the curtain. That's a good idea.
Yeah, and that's what and so staging wise, what we tried to set up was when Rattan and Petunia are entering, they're always going left to right.
Right.
And then when Wicker's coming in, he's always going right to left. So you always see, even there, they crossed over the camera, because that was the rule, left to right. So they crossed left, even though they planted right of him. So just these things, and I think I think it worked out really well in the end. It's not confusing, but confusing to Cuke.
Yeah, doing a mistaken identity plot.
Yeah.
It's hard.
Yeah,
it really
exactly.
Is. It makes me respect all those Marx Brothers movies more.
Who was it the Brady Bunch that had two dates on the same night? Was that Peter Brady, or was that
probably Greg?
It was probably Greg. Yeah.
Peter didn't have as much luck with the ladies as Greg did.
So going back and forth between the two rooms. So.
Just make up your mind. Well, little kids love stuff like this. I mean, you and I have probably seen 100 films with this similar. With a mistaken identity plot.
Right.
But this might be a 4-year-old's first time they've
mistaken identity. That's right.
And they're going to think it's so original.
That's a great thing about making movies for 4-year-olds. It's also original.
Come on in. It's the oldest hotel in Turkey, built on the cliffs of.
Get it? Come on in.
Okay. Yep. Come on in. Yeah, I get it. That's cute. Okay, now the music. This is Kurt. I'm doing a formal apology on behalf of Kurt Heineke. At the time he sketched out that those notes, he had no idea that we were actually going to be doing "Children of the Lord" song, and so that music is actually the music for Cheeseburger. So,
oops.
Yeah. So Joe Spataford came to Kurt and said, "Kurt, I need some notes, for this just draw me out some real music for this, because I don't want to pretend like I'm writing music and have it be wrong. So
right. Well, you have to, because people will write in and say that's not music.
That's not music.
Charles Schultz went through that when doing Peanuts, and when Schroeder would play, he'd do music, and found out very quickly people paid attention.
People paid attention, and so people who can read music will realize that that's the cheeseburger song and really not the song that he sings. So
don't send letters.
Kurt was mortified. So if you're a serious musician, you'll be mortified. But if not, it'll just look like those little musical thingies. That's what I call music. Those little sticks and.
Hey, a little Easter, a little plug there. I read that.
A shout out to Greg Fritz and our marketing, head of our marketing. He's saying, you know what, we should have St. Nicholas there because that's what's coming out next.
Vocalized melody accompanied with successive steps. Good thing no one will be watching.
Okay. Now you may be wondering why a mountain in Turkey is full of lumberjacks.
My first response is, this is a budget issue, wasn't it?
Yes, because we had a bunch of lumberjacks. Those are the lumberjacks from Huckleberry Larry.
Not only had a bunch of lumberjacks, you had a bunch of leftover unemployed lumberjacks sitting in a database somewhere.
That's right. So, but see, here's the thinking. This is Mount Ararat, and there's, logging that goes on mountains. And even though we're sort of above the timberline.
I was going to say, there are no trees. Now there aren't.
It's been lumbered to death. So the lumberjacks are up there. They've got nothing to do since they've cut down all the trees. So they sit drinking hot chocolate all day.
I remember singing this song when I was a kid. It was fun to bring it out again.
Yeah, I think this will be very familiar to folks. And thankfully, it's public domain. And
which means I don't get credit for it.
That's right. Now, this is the advantage of having a concept artist who's also a woodworker.
Did Chuck do all this?
Yeah, Chuck was able to figure out sort of all the mechanics to how this thing would operate. And it's really quite believable.
That's amazing, because I did some initial sketches just so they have again, understand what I was trying to write about. But I didn't think it would actually work. I was just working on this is how the outside parts of it's supposed to look.
That's right.
Yeah, but he made it look much better than my drawings.
Chuck has a way of doing that, making things look much better. Yeah. Not necessarily your drawings, because you're an awfully good artist yourself.
Why, thank you.
It's not about the Wilwicks or the Wivum. It's about...
Okay, now here's the Wilwicks or the Wivum. Actually, what we ended up doing, because of the way he does his W's and R's, we changed a lot of his wording to to accentuate his dewivowy.
Because dewivowy is funny.
Dewivowy. Okay, now those flames are the largest flames in the world.
Well,
but if the characters aren't standing next to him, you don't really notice, because that is one large fireplace.
That's almost dangerous.
See?
Let's go. That tunnel must
now you're really going to love this ice cave when you see it. We'll take a short break to go to the bird cage here, but so if you'll notice this cliff too.
See, that's what this idea came, because I knew that we had to have a break here.
Yes.
I thought, well, I need a cliffhanger.
Yeah.
A cliffhanger! I made a cliffhanger.
It's a cliffhanger. And fans of Lord of the Beans will recognize this cliff from that episode. This is where they fell off the mountain of much snow.
Which was originally used in Minnesota Cuke in the Samson's hairbrush.
That's true. It went back even further. Yeah. So where the big snowman was.
We reuse and recycle.
That's right.
Big
yes,
idea.
we're eco-friendly. Besides having vegetables as characters, which are very environmentally friendly, we recycle.
Good heavens. I shouldn't have shown him.
So,
now, if you will excuse me, I have to set this ticking
but this is all very on the nose.
I know.
This ticking clock device.
That's a, you're writing.
So if you're going to call it a ticking clock device.
Yeah, every metaphor I just made literal when writing it. Writers will think it's funnier even than...
Yeah, that's right. And since it's for 4-year-olds... Oh, wait, here's...
I hate cliffhangers.
What did he say? I missed it.
Oh, I hate cliffhangers.
Oh.
Yeah. Boom.
The part of the show where Laddie comes out.
Is that in my script? I forgot. It's
I
been a while.
I can't remember. So this silly song is great. I've been a fan of Steve Taylor for years, since I was in high school, and we were both from Denver. So I remember in high school hearing "I Want to Be a Clone," You know that album?
Yeah,
that
yeah.
came out?
I was in college when it came out.
Okay. I was in high school and I absolutely loved it and have been a huge Steve Taylor fan. And since have we've got to be friends and work with Steve and I called Steve last year and I said, "Hey, would you like to pitch a silly song?" And he said, "Sure, I'd love to." And he came back with this sippy cup song, which was just completely ironic because I have also written a sippy cup song.
Oh, when you said that, I was going to say, I thought you wrote the sippy cup.
Yeah, I wrote a sippy cup song, but it was a real hard rock song, and it's starring Jean-Claude. It was sippy songs with Jean-Claude, and so it's just much more aggressive. And we may make it one day, but we haven't made it yet. So when Steve sent this song, it's like, I have a sippy cup song too. So I sent him mine. He's like, "Oh, I love your song," and I'm like, "I love yours too." So, but he modeled it actually after his initial pitch on it was kind of an ode to Hairbrush, where it's sort of an operetta, telling a little story.
Right.
And then Kurt and I worked with him on it just filling out the rest of it. But it was really great working with Steve and. It just, turned out to be a really fun song. I don't know if you've seen this at all.
I have not. I have not heard this song or seen it.
So
in fact, I was expecting a different silly song, which I will not name because it must be coming up on a later video. Because I recently storyboarded, like 3 months ago.
Okay.
Storyboarded another silly song.
Would this be Staplers?
No, it had to do with a dog and a certain pastry.
Oh yes, yeah. That'll be in the coming up episode. Yes, indeed.
I hope I haven't given too much away.
Yes, that will be top secret.
I keep wanting to talk like Wicker now. Top secret.
Top secret.
The Elmo Fudd voice.
You've been granted sippy stay.
My kids actually, there's different schools of sippy cups. Kids who think that using them make them too babyish, so they don't want to use their sippy cup. My kids were all the opposite because having a sippy cup means that they can remain mobile, and actually take a drink, take their water to bed with them and not have to worry about, spilling it everywhere. So my kids, remained sippy cup fans, and even now they have those little straw, those one-way valve straw cups that they love taking, to bed, having on their nightstand at night. So they have no aversions to sippy cups, but some kids can't wait to get rid of them.
I can't remember my kids' attitudes on sippy cups.
Yeah.
We certainly had plenty of them.
Yeah.
There's probably still one or two buried in our van. My kids are in their teens now, so under
the seats in the minivan
with all the Cheerios.
Haven't been to the detail shop lately.
Actually, I love cleaning out the van. I find money, and I found a puppy once.
Oh, that's nice.
He was fat,
living off of Cheerios
and ketchup packs,
and leftover contents of sippy cups.
Yeah.
So it's nice having this nice little lesson-y moment, hanging over a cliff.
Just like you. When Noah did what was
when they should be trying to get out of this.
Yeah.
Because there is a ticking clock.
Well, let's just pause and talk about the lesson for a while, please.
So if I think about God smiling at me,
But they're just sort of resigned to it right now because Min hasn't realized that he has his rope on him.
Some nice subtle animation in there, too. I like those expressions.
Yeah, they did a real nice job. Real nice job on animation.
rope. This is why I never leave home without it.
Where was it? There.
It's the same place the can of film was, and where Julia has her purse now. It's in those secret cartoon pockets.
Oh, great sound effect.
Yeah. Courtesy of Mr. Adam Frick. Adam did a great job on sound design for this whole thing. I don't know how, he said he had like 20 different types of hops he used. We have so many surfaces that the characters are hopping over. And you'll love this once we get to the ice cave here, which has just turned out gorgeous.
Oh, wow.
Look, tater tracks.
It just has a lot of,
Tater tracks.
And
That's not my line, but it's fine.
And there weren't actually really tater tracks there either, so we're just going to glance over that. But this was just a really fun ride through these, kind of surfboarding or, skateboarding.
Yeah,
through,
yeah.
I guess that's sort of like snowboarding is what it really is. But Adam was telling me he used for the hopping motions of them on the ice, he has a mirror, and he tapped his finger on the mirror, and that kind of gave a nice little vegetable hopping on ice sound.
That works.
It was cool.
I think my favorite vegetable hopping sound is still just the opening, the original opening with Larry hopping into the shot, and it sounds like hitting a PVC pipe on your hand. Like, dunk, 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 dunk. Oh yeah, I remember rewriting this scene a couple times, trying to get these tests to work just right.
Yep.
Oh, nice. I like the little condensation as he talks.
Yeah, as he's talking. Yeah, and it calms down after a while. But you know, just that idea that they're cold. He kind of sells the cold. So in every Minnesota Cuke episode, he's got to cross over a cavern to get to what he needs.
Right.
At least on the first two.
Oh, this is beautiful. I love the color palette, because every location seems to have a different overall color.
Yeah.
And so it really changes the mood as we go from dilemma to dilemma.
Dilemma to dilemma. Yeah, and we'll do, with every episode we do...
and those are things you don't put in the script. I didn't.
Yeah. Well, there is something, as you know, called the color script.
Yes.
And we'll talk about that for benefit of the studio audience. But, Chuck Vollmer did the color script on this. And basically what a color script does is it charts out your use of color across the whole script, and how color informs emotion and how it relates to particular scenes. So you can actually look at, usually color scripts are done on one page, so you can look at little thumbnails of every scene and just sort of see how the color flows over the whole show. And here we're in the, this is his major test. We're in the belly of the beast, and it's kind of cold and blue, and then we end up with a nice warm color at the very end.
Now, is that a new coin, or did you reuse that from somewhere else?
That coin is from Going Up, actually.
Okay, I was going to say, coins aren't hard to recreate. And make,
but sometimes we use stuff because, we already have the model existing, and sometimes it's fun to just use stuff just so to be self-referential, just to say, hey, we used that back then.
Yeah, I remember the quarter in King George and the Ducky.
Uh-huh.
I thought that was maybe what it was from.
Oh,
I keep forgetting about it.
I think, and sometimes that'll happen. I'll say, oh, this is from this show, but then, I'd forgotten that it was from even earlier than that.
Oh, yeah. Like The Mountain.
Yeah, exactly, for instance.
Well, you remembered it from a show you directed. And I said, no, that was from a show I directed.
I stole that from you.
You borrowed my prop, then borrowed it again. Uh-oh.
It's a bit of cartoon physics right here. It doesn't really work in real life.
So don't try that at home, kids.
Try that on your ice cavern at home.
And this harkens back to the countertop dilemma.
That's right.
For mac and cheese or beans and franks. Your friends may laugh.
It's kind of hard not to just watch it
all right.
when you're only watching it for the first time.
Oh, yeah. I think thematically it works.
Yeah.
Which is funny to me. This has always been the little logic leap in all the VeggieTales. Larry will have most often Larry will have a problem on the countertop, like saying his prayer over his lunch.
Right.
And then they'll say, well, let's show you this film that you acted in. And you obviously...
yeah, now I remember I was acting in that one. This set turned out really great. And that was very Indiana Jones.
It's fun in writing this. I was trying to find out as many words for umbrella as I could. There aren't that many, but there are more than you think.
Bumbershoot. Yeah,
Bumbershoot,
that's
yeah.
a nice one. Yeah,
I like that. Of course, parasol. But then I
Yes.
couldn't find any more that were even close to being recognizable.
Well, some sombrilla. I think that's in Spanish, but it's not. Not an English word for it.
This looks familiar.
And then we harken back to this. I got to animate that. Thank you very much.
Hey.
Yeah, Joe Spataford did the art for it, and then we found that we didn't have a pipeline to animate it. So it's like, oh, wait, we could do that.
So would you use After Effects or something?
Yeah, I did it in After Effects. That was fun. Actually, that line checkered. We had to,
Yeah.
we just added that yesterday in the sound mix because
Just to make sure it's
just
clear?
to make sure, yeah. Because and actually the original art didn't have the alternating dark and light spots in the.
Oh, did you
so
do that
if
in post as well?
Yeah, we did that in post. It's like we have to sell this better, otherwise it's not going to connect. So,
Yeah.
So by adding those checkered and saying checkered, it somehow makes sense.
Yeah.
Noah's umbrella didn't bring
Things you don't realize
Until
when
you
you're
see
writing.
the final art. It's like, we'll do this and we'll do this. Describe it in letters, but when you see it, it's like, oh,
quite educational.
doesn't quite work. But actually, it does. I mean, because obviously the umbrella pattern in Mexico was, lined.
Yeah.
So it all came together.
Wait, I tell you, wait for me.
Okay, now this is a really cool avalanche. The effects guys at Hoo just did a stellar job on this, and then Adam with the sound design did so just the whole collapse just really works well. We're listening to it at a very low volume on
Yeah.
headsets right now, but
I can just imagine though
we're
in
pumped
stereo.
up. Yeah, it'd be awesome.
I hear familiar Minnesota Cuke themes.
Yeah, and that was cool too, working with because Kurt did the original music for the Minnesota Cuke theme, and it's great doing a sequel because the music's already done in terms of the themes. And so even when we were doing the story reel, we used a lot of the music for Temp, and then ended up just Kurt layered over top of that and
Right.
highlighted the new visuals.
Mr. Muffet.
Oh, you brought back the Mounties.
Oh yeah, you can't lose the Mounties.
Well, they weren't in the script, so I like Mounties.
Oh yeah. And Kevin Gamble, one of the producers, is Canadian as well. So
I have relatives that are Canadian.
really, he got a little tear in his eye when we were playing the Canadian national anthem here. And you couldn't hear it in the score, but we do a little, "Oh Canada."
Yeah, we did it
stinger
in
there.
the first Minnesota Cuke too.
That umbrella contains
That's public domain, right?
Oh Canada, I think
Yeah.
so. Yeah, I think there's some sort of a treaty.
Surely, O Lord, you bless the righteous.
It's hard to get a Bible verse in an umbrella in a real kind of stylistic way,
Yeah, but just think you could make those and sell them to people.
Well, we actually have an umbrella giveaway for this, although,
Ooh.
yeah, as a pre-purchase thing.
Feel God's smile.
So, but I think that.
Well,
we
shouldn't you
couldn't-
tell them about that before they buy it instead of on the commentary?
Well, some people who are listening to this may have got the pre-purchase deal on the umbrella. So, but
maybe
I don't think, it
maybe
doesn't look
some
like
and
they-
maybe some people borrowed it and they're thinking about buying it.
Oh, here, you gotta check this out because this is really cool. So, this is the big reveal at the end.
Yeah.
The "Come on in" is actually Noah's Ark.
That is cool.
Isn't that
Of
cool?
course, I knew that was coming up, but that is.
But you couldn't imagine the lens
I
flare.
no, I could have imagined it, but I didn't. Hey, he's got a new bag on his head.
Oh yeah, it's Larry's freaky bag.
Wasn't smiling before.
I don't know what you're talking about. The way Minnesota
Sort of like
Cuke
The
did
Mask.
Hands Rescue,
Yeah, you should have like
no matter
the
where they
sad
go,
side drawn on one side and the happy face drawn on the other.
Oh, here, check this out. This is
Take the
funny. Watch
bag
this.
off your head.
I'd rather not.
Come on, Larry. Stop goofing around. We have a show to wrap up.
Bob, I said I'd rather not.
What happened?
What?
Your bag changed expressions again.
Really?
Sorry, I had to
Can we get
just get your reaction on that one.
That's good.
But I want my bag back after the show.
Fine. Let's see if QWERTY has a verse for us today.
See, now Cordy's wearing the bag. So let's all just sit here and listen to Tim laugh.
I can't have a whole. That's my best commentary. Just laughter.
That's right. Laughter is the best commentary, as well as the best form of medicine.
QWERTY's light is turned off.
Well-
That little green light is turned
Well,
on.
see, that was for his floppy drive, and he's got an internal drive now, internal hard drive.
Being afraid of people.
Yes, and
you
that's
in
right.
trouble.
Curdy, you know what we're going to do is we're going to give Cordy an upgrade, and it'll be a super secret for a little bit. But
Now that
anybody-
not anymore.
well, see, but not a lot of people listen to commentaries, so those who do will be on the end. That
I mean, people aren't listening to
Cordy's-
me right now. When am I doing this?
Well, some people do, and it's added bonus. So
No, I know a few people. I do get letters from fans and some kids
that do watch the listen
Yeah,
to the
I have
commentaries.
a super fan named Kieran he listens to the commentary first before he watches. it.
Really? Oh wow! So hey, Kieran, how are you? But so folks who do watch this or listen to this commentary will know to watch for a QWERTY upgrade in the near future.
And he loves you very much.
See now, like, see, Jimmy's got the bag. in his head now. We had to do a new version of the bag without the tooth because Jimmy doesn't have a tooth.
Ooh, looks like a Chuck drawing.
Yep, that's a Chuck drawing. The concept art for this was so cool that and that's actually from the original one, the original from the original map. So, but the concept art was so cool.
Yeah, that's a Chuck drawing too.
That's a Chuck drawing.
Looks like a Joe.
I think that's a Chuck drawing also.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, Chuck did the Kumon. That's a Joe right there.
Yeah.
But yeah, the concept art was so cool. We just sort of blued it out, and Ron Eddie did these title designs and a credit roll that takes 4 hours to render. That's a lot.
Serious?
That's it.
Oh man.
Okay.
So that's fun. So you redrew the theater even though you were reusing it.
Yeah, although I don't know. It could have been. I'd have to go back and look at that because I don't know if they reused the Esther Theater because I can't remember how far back the Esther Theater went. So, or even if
gorgeous. Boy, my name is in here more than I thought it would be.
See, look, Tim Hodge, story artist.
Yeah.
There you go.
And all my friends, Eddie Pittman, Michael Spooner, and Tom Bang. Yeah,
he did a great job. Todd, who's the lead storyboard artist on this, had to turn these storyboards around so fast that he called in a small army of storyboard artists to help him out.
Well,
the Hoo-Hoo production.
How many credits do we have left? I want to make sure we say goodbye to everybody.
Oh yeah, well we have still a little bit left to go.
Okay,
so it's a beautiful. I think that's a Joe Spataford of the umbrella. And some of these they're rendered out in higher quality. I think this was from Chuck's color script of the cave.
Okay.
So this
I was gonna say it looks like a Chuck
drawing. It was a small thumbnail.
Recognizing people's styles is like recognizing their handwriting. After a while, you just
exactly. It's like, oh, that belongs to this guy.
That's a Joe.
Yeah, that's a Joe.
I recognize the line work.
Exactly. Good job lighting. Good job animation. Good job effects. Everybody.
These are all names I do not know.
Yeah.
The people I have never met.
Yeah.
Because we changed studios.
Yep. Good folks though. And there's Paragon. Well,
I know Adam. I know John.
Yep. I know these people. Well, I think we're getting close to the end of our credits, so we should.
Gretchen performed on this. I didn't know that.
Yep.
Congratulations, Gretchen.
Yep. Yeah, Gretchen is Kurt's daughter, and she's a great French horn player. She's been playing in the high school band.
My kids are in
in the same band.
Yeah, same marching band. Yeah,
yep, that's awesome. So, well, I think we're wrapping up. So let's say goodbye to our listening audience.
Thank you,
everybody,
for the few people who are listening to commentary. I appreciate it for one.
All right. Hope you enjoyed our commentary and hope you enjoyed Minnesota Cuke and the search for Noah's Umbrella.
See you next time.
Hey there, everybody. This is Brian Roberts, the director of St. Nicholas.
And this is Chris Wall, one of the producers. Very happy to be here. Thanks for having me, Brian.
And we're here to talk you through the show, kind of a guided tour.
We'll point out all of the highlights and things you might have missed.
And some behind-the-scenes stories.
Fast-paced 45-minute.
And right off the top, we'll talk about this fantastic opening number that we've got. I hope it's going to be a Happy Christmas, written by our good friend Mr. Mark Steele, who's a great writer. He came in kind of late in the process, and I said to him, hey, I need this big opening number that's like all Christmas, and it's all storytelling and all excitement, and he and I worked together to kind of figure out what this song needed to be and where it needed to go. And even then, it went through a couple iterations, and we ended up with this fantastic song.
Although I liked the alt that we had, where right off the bat, Grandpa, who kind of comes hopping in the beginning there, actually accidentally hops in front of the truck and is hit.
That's not true.
And
no,
we didn't think that worked, so we changed that.
I don't think you should no. do that. That's a bad idea.
Yeah, Main Street was just fantastic, designed by Chuck Vollmer.
Indeed.
And this was modeled after his hometown.
Bryan, Ohio, that's correct. And then with a little bit of Franklin, Tennessee sprinkled in with this with this tree in the middle of the town. Although, like 2 years ago in Franklin, remember how the tree in the middle of the circle was a shrub? It
was so strange.
This big round
It was very
bush.
round, yeah.
Like it was 20 feet tall, but it was a bush.
We had it built, and this was actually an island. And Brian was like, "I don't like how the pedestrians are in the street."
Yeah,
Let's,
because
put a
we
walkway."
needed to go back and forth to that nativity, and the people kept walking through the street, and I'm
Didn't
like,
feel like that was good
I don't
modeled.
think I should have these kids
So
walking.
see,
the
there's a
street.
little walkway there now.
And you'll notice even when the kids did cross the street that one time, there was a scooter was there as a crossing guard.
It's like
to
it's like
ensure their
Times Square.
safety.
It's like Times Square now. It's cut off for pedestrians. only.
But then, of course, now everybody's standing in the street singing the song. But
We're trying to be model safe behavior here,
largely.
like VeggieTales and. Whoa! Watch it flying.
Oh, poor Bob.
Don't do that. Rude to your storyteller.
I think it was an accident.
So this was fun, kind of creating this group of kids. You know, the outset of the story was, what do we have to say about Christmas? And that really was
Right.
where it began with Phil, Mike, Brian, and myself. With, you know, we've talked about, you know, toys for Christmas. We've talked about, in Easter Carol and Star of Christmas, you know, themes around the birth of Christ. And so what could we do? And all of us kind of stared at each other until Phil finally popped the bubble and said, hey guys, I think it would be fantastic for us to go back and tell the actual historical story of Saint Nicholas. And
Right.
we said, oh, well, who is that? And thus began our research.
Oh, and the research and the research. I mean, with every show we do, we start out with a big trip to the library, and we pull out all the books we can find about, you know, the topics related to whatever we're working on.
Did you return those books, by the way?
No, I just got a bill for $2,000. So we just pull out books that are picture books, and we pull out children's books, and we pull out historical books, and try to find out all we can about the subjects that we're telling. But this one, by far, was the hardest research we've ever had to do, because what we found was that St. Nicholas was a real person who lived in the 1st century in Greece, in what is now Turkey. At the time, it was under control of the Romans. But much of what we know about him has kind of turned into mythology, because obviously nobody was writing a biography of him, you know, however many thousand years ago. So we had to do a lot of sifting through all of this mythology, some of which may have been true, some of which wasn't, which we had no idea which parts were true and which weren't. And ultimately we had to kind of string together our own narrative.
Yeah, and then ultimately you dramatize.
Through things that we believed were true, combined with some dramatic elements, such as Gustav, who was a complete fabrication, and then combined with just some fun veggie storytelling, like Larry's ability to create snow.
Create stuff, yeah. And then Main Street, ultimately, we got an extra wrinkle here. Initially, it was just kind of a frame story that just said, hey, everybody, gather around, let me tell you a story.
It's going to be a great Christmas. Oh, except for Laura. Her dad lost his job.
Well, and even then, that was an added wrinkle. But there was this idea that, well, how do we model the behavior we're going to learn about giving to others and with no personal gain and giving in secret, which is really what St. Nicholas's life was identified by in modern world. How do we take this home for kids? And so we felt like, you know what, let's let this story on Main Street kind of become a little more, and that's
to
when
show
we
us
began to
something,
add
show
some
us a
things.
concrete way that we can apply the lessons of St. Nicholas's story.
Yeah, which then obviously the dad just had his car break, and I think we've all encountered that kind of thing at Christmas where you see definitive need and poverty and such, and you kind of have to figure out how are you going to respond to that in the face of your own kind of plans for the holidays and how you do that. So. Yeah, so it was a really fun adventure, very personal for us. We were working on this through the holidays initially, and which we thought was really fun. We're like, oh, this is great. We're working on a Christmas story during Christmas. How fantastic is that? Turns out it's a little oversaturating.
Yes, it is.
It actually was more rewarding.
Like, we barely put our tree
to
up
do
at home
this
last year.
Yeah, we're actually finishing this in the summertime, and it's much more fun to think about the holidays when you're not there than doing it when you're in the middle of it. But here we are in Greece.
This is our little Greek town. It was interesting, as I said earlier, the time period here is that we're in Greece, but now that area is part of Turkey, and at the time it was controlled by the Romans. So the way that we designed this was that we went for a very Greek town, but then as far as costumes and kind of soft goods, we went for more of a Roman influence to suggest that kind of the architectural stuff is all Greek, but then the stuff that's kind of more trendy, the fashions and things are a little more Roman.
Can you believe that we think this hard about a VeggieTales episode? We do. Oh man, hope you guys all just appreciate it.
Well,
and
you
love it
gotta
out there.
start somewhere.
Yeah, Brian, I think this was the real fun of the story is that it's a Christmas holiday story, and yet look at the screen right now.
Yeah,
That's not Christmas.
Well,
And, you know, Larry makes that comment a few times, but I love
you'll find that thread through here quite a bit as we're talking about this. But for me, what I took on as, or what I identified really as probably the single biggest challenge, besides the fact that we didn't know the actual story of this guy, and we had to not make something up, but thread together these little pieces into a cohesive, dramatic story. What I identified as the biggest challenge was, well, hold on, we're telling a story about a guy who lived on the coast of Greece in the 1st century, and it's boats and it's sunny days and all this completely non-Christmassy stuff.
Yeah.
So I was like, we gotta find ways to make this feel like Christmas. In a way that feels satisfying to the viewer, but at the same time, I took it as a challenge to not just go for the kind of the easy, cheesy,
and I think
emotional trappings.
What I hope
look, it's snowing. Like when we do use snow, but we use it as a joke.
Yeah.
So that was my aim, was to take those things, take those modern Christmas things that when you're watching a Christmas show, you go, oh, that feels Christmassy. And to try to spin it and use it in an ironic way, or at least in a humorous way.
Well, and I hope what we've done here, I know certainly, Brian, what you were after is giving you fans out there just a more worldview of what Christmas means, because we have what it means in America, pretty concrete, but what does it mean in other places, and what do the holidays look like? And I think this captures some of that it's not the same. There may be fish involved instead of chestnuts, and things like that. This family and all that's going on in here, we were certainly giving our homage to Big Fat Greek Wedding. Just all the fun,
whenever we had
energy.
somebody auditioning for the show, we were like, you need to go watch Big Fat Greek Wedding.
Because we really wanted to capture that family dynamic that's just so engaging and so full of life.
Exactly. I love the mom's hair. The mom's hair just kills me. The actress on the mom, her name is Tana, although we never, the character's name is Tana. We never say it in the show. The actress is Carrie Pasapia, who's a fantastic actress here, who worked with us on
that joke took a little bit, by the
pirate movie. Oh, the anchovy joke. Oh, good grief.
We played that thing a couple
Used
times.
to be.
This was a great one.
Ho ho ho. Get it?
Yeah, we had some of that one.
Yeah. We kind of wear that joke out though, like the ho 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 joke. We actually had to cut a joke about it at the end of the show because I'm like, you know what? This is one ho too many.
We were just playing into really what Larry's fantasy is about. If he were to meet St. Nicholas, what would that be like? What would he feel like? And so Larry's always trying to insert.
Well, and also, what would he? Larry obviously would have a very being the simplistic guy he is. Obviously, Larry, I imagined, would be a huge Christmas fan, and he'd be the guy with the Christmas village and 20 trees, and that watches Christmas specials on TV all year, every year. So it's like a person like that could be unsatisfied meeting this Greek pepper who's fishing. And that's actually where all that humor came out of, was this idea that, well, okay, so let's put Larry in the mindset of, or in the place of the viewer who says, all right, you said this is a Christmas story, so give me Christmas.
Yeah.
And we gave Larry, as the storyteller, the power to make it feel Christmassy and to bring in, again, those ironic elements of the twinkling lights and the snow and the red stockings and, decorating sheep with Christmas lights.
By the way, fantastic work on the water here.
I love the water.
Guys did a great job with it. We were just like, wow.
This whole sunset scene is lovely. Notice the colors here are so different than the last time we saw this marketplace. Here we have our new villain, Gustav, who we didn't talk about at the beginning.
The doppelganger, Gustav.
He's a brand new veggie who we had a lot of fun creating. Whenever we create a new veggie, the single hardest part of it is finding a voice of someone that feels like they fit in our world and yet bring us something new. And so we went through an audition process, fairly lengthy, although not as lengthy as for Nicholas, which we'll talk about later, and ended up coming back to Alan Lee, who is one of our friends here in town, who was also in the pirate movie, just like Carrie. He is also the voice of Nicholas's father, Octavius, or Epiphanes. And so, but Alan and I had to work together really closely to just get Gustav nailed, because we just wanted to get that just right kind of threatening but funny, and he's a little bit Burgermeister Meisterburger, he's a little bit Mr. Potter, he's a little bit Mr. Potter from Wonderful Life, he's a little bit Pirelli from Sweeney Todd. Oh, I banged the stand. Sorry if that hurt anybody's ears. So the two keys that kind of, I think, came together for Alan was Pirelli from Sweeney Todd and Harpo Marx. Wait, Harpo, is he the one who didn't talk? One of the Marx brothers. I forget. It was one of the Marx brothers.
It was a good inspiration.
So those two voices kind of came together, and we were like, oh, that's Gustav. We got it.
Yeah. This just backtrack slightly. The moment at the dock when Nikki says, are we going to lose everything if we keep giving stuff away?
Yeah.
It was really the fundamental fear that we had to pinpoint for Nicholas. What would be his antithesis? And ultimately, it's a fear that, well, if I keep giving, which gets to be a bit of a theological, can you outgive God?
Right.
And of course, his father's like, there's no way, because all this stuff is his anyways. You can't possibly outgive him.
But from a storytelling perspective, it's absolutely uninteresting for us to tell you a story about a guy who's born a perfect saint, who goes through life doing everything right, and then the story ends. So we needed this conflict inside of Nicholas to give him this internal struggle of, I'm afraid to give, first because he's afraid he won't have enough of his own, and then just because he loses his parents. And
yeah, so this is the sad part, losing the parents, which we really wrestled around. It's a really important part of his life.
It is.
And
I had to push several times to keep this in the show. And the reason I did so, besides the great emotional validity I think it gives to everything, and especially to Nicholas, is that this is one of the few things that we know with a fair amount of certainty that is true about his life. That his parents did die early in his life, orphaning him, and leaving him with wealth, but nothing else.
And didn't this character, that Octavius character, that was a character that we found in some stories, right? There was a
actually, it wasn't a servant, but there was in some of the stories there was an uncle that Nicholas lived with after his parents' death, who took care of him and taught him, helped teach him about Christ.
All right, here comes a big stretch of a joke. Ready?
Oh, that's funny.
We waited too long for that joke, but there it is.
Yeah, we did.
So then this scene was another troubling scene because we were trying to figure out what do we do to make Nicholas need to run away.
Right. At one point he ran away because everything reminded him of his parents, and it's like, well, that
wasn't quite what we needed.
Really give us the dramatic energy we need.
So we decided let's push our bad guy character and let him really be imposing and kind of threatening here.
Exactly. And I think it comes across very well. So this scene kind of can play any number of ways. For me, the way I think it ultimately comes across is that Gustav kind of staged this whole thing,
thieving peas,
to try to manipulate Nicholas into getting him to go away. Because, and this is what we were going for with Gustav, is the antithesis of Nick's parents, who are people who give and give and give. We wanted a guy, so they trade in hope. They give people hope. Somebody like Gustav, hope is the last thing he wants in the world. He thrives on despair and pain and suffering. So in my mind, Gustav sees the death of Nick's parents as an opportunity to take over the town, because Nick's parents represented hope. Now that that's gone, by getting rid of Nicholas especially, it gives Gustav free reign, and we see the implementation of that when we come back in the second act. And Gustav has completely taken over town.
Yep. So, guest appearance by Pa Grape here.
Very brief.
Yeah, we were like, we need a pilot for the ship. It should be. And we had some character. And Brian's like, oh, no. It's
Let's
Pa Grape.
just do Pa. Well,
all right, so the
sometimes
sheep on the back of Larry here.
No, we're not going to talk about that.
It's just this great gag.
Just
that
pretend it never happened.
It was storyboarded really cool, and it never made it, and it never got explained. But
Well,
it's just really funny now.
It's because remember there was another time before this that we came back to Main Street.
Yeah.
And in the storytelling process, we were just like, you know what? Why are we coming back to Main Street?
I love this
isn't
pop-up book, by the way.
accomplishing us anyway. Why, thank you.
Pop-up books are really nifty.
Yes, they were fun. The classic map.
The map. That's how we best
Ending
journey
somewhere around Jerusalem. Well, originally there was supposed to be like a town here on the shore as he's sailing towards it, and I'm like, you can't actually get to Jerusalem by water. Like you can get close to it, but then you gotta go across the desert.
And there he goes falling and tied to a sheep. No reason.
That's funny. There's a lot of falling for no reason in this show.
So let's talk about this setup here, Brian. You know, obviously there were some things we were wanting to point to about some of the excesses of the season and the consumerism that I think we all have to grapple with every year.
But we wanted to do it gently and for a reason within our story.
Yeah. And so he's looking for hope and...
For happiness.
And happiness, yeah. And so he finds that briefly here on this Main Street, but then of course the moment it's over it all disappears.
Indeed. And you'll notice he kind of... The things that they're putting on him during the song will recall or foreshadow his Saint Nick costume. So you see the wreath is kind of a beard, the sweater is kind of a jacket, and then that hat is kind of a Saint Nick or a Santa Claus hat.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like he's kind of becoming who he's supposed to be.
We're gently pointing to origins.
But it's a very fake version of that.
Yeah.
Oh,
here we go.
Here's the little drummer boy. This is a joke that...
So ridiculous.
It's a joke that we had a hard time getting it nailed, and we finally, at the last minute, wrote some new lyrics there.
In the mix session.
In the mix session.
So where is this downtown from?
It's originally... No. This is originally from The Babysitter in Denial.
Ah, yes.
On not Minnesota Cuke, on Duke and the Great Pie War. I still call it Princess in the Pie War. The original
What's
title.
this?
It's the Star of Christmas. So yeah, this whole scene of, again, going back to the history and mythology, history versus mythology of Nicholas, of Saint Nicholas. You know, we know, or we believe at some point in his life he made a pilgrimage to the Holy Land.
Mm-hmm.
And we kind of played with whether or not to put that in the show, but it wasn't really serving a dramatic purpose. It was just kind of like he goes to the Holy Land and then he comes home. So what we decided was to put his life turn in the Holy Land, and so we were visiting Jerusalem, and we created this chapel and this character of Sister Claire, and he visits this chapel in Jerusalem and kind of learns about Christ's love and how having Christ's love should impact how we act in our life. And at some point I said, hey, you know what? Jerusalem's not far from Bethlehem. It's, I think, like 4 miles. And I was like, what if, in the middle of the story, he sees a star in the sky, follows it across the desert to Bethlehem?
Mm-hmm.
And again, that was a way of kind of taking what we knew and putting it with an interesting storytelling twist and making it feel Christmassy all at the same time.
This interior of this chapel is just gorgeous. You know, Joe Spadaford designed this. He has just this love for some of these famous biblical sites and architecture, and really dug into this and just made it really special. You know, Brian, the singing nun reminds me of the visit we had. Remember,
oh yes,
a couple years ago,
the Dominican sisters.
Yes, who came through and sang for us here.
Wonderful order of sisters here in Nashville.
Oh, it just blew us away. It was so wonderful.
It was.
So this message here about how Jesus was doing everything, God was doing everything he could to come near to us and sent his son Jesus.
I love that languaging too. Christmas was the time when Jesus came near to us.
Yeah, that was something that Brian and I both experienced this last Christmas at an event together where this message was presented, and we thought, this is really neat, and we want to express that in here. And so it carries this beautiful moment here.
It really does. So ultimately we were able to take kind of some historical myth and some creative storytelling and turn it into this beautiful moment where this kid suddenly realizes what his parents were all about and why. That it was because of Christ's love.
He don't bake yet.
You love that joke. I mean, not that I don't love it, but you like it even more than I do. And here we come to
craziness.
Donuts for Benny.
Absolutely crazy. Right off the top, never feed donuts to your dog.
Please.
You
We
will
hope we
them
make that
sick.
clear enough.
Dangerous, dangerous. Don't do it.
And you'll notice this is the only time in the show that I have snow falling.
Briefly.
Yes, ever so briefly. So Donuts for Benny is a song that Mike wrote several years ago, and it wasn't a Christmas song. It was just hey, here's a song about Mr. Lent feeding donuts to dogs. And we were like, wow, the dog is cute, and Lent is funny, but it just didn't it just felt like there was some piece missing, and so it kind of sat around for a while until we started working on St. Nicholas, and we needed a silly song, and I said, I've got it.
And I actually...
We'll make Donuts for Benny a Christmas song as kind of a homage to those great, emotional, manipulative Christmas songs that we all love to hear at Christmas time.
Brian, I don't remember this, but I edited this thing and didn't know about the big turn.
Oh,
And
right.
So I was going through it just like, oh, it's cute, nice, it's a funny song. And then all of a sudden, things just go crazy. And I was like,
What is
going on?
happening?
This is so funny. Mike Naraki did all the voicing for the dog.
Actually, Kevin Gamble, the other producer, helped out a little bit.
Did he throw his voice
He
in there
did
too?
some of the whimpering and whining. So they both are Benny. But in some level, aren't we all Benny?
Aren't we all Benny? I didn't know Archie could play, but he's quite accomplished.
Oh, he's not really playing.
That's a
stunt
come on!
violin.
Don't break it for me. Looks like he's been training for years.
We kind of when we talked to our production partners on this, we kind of went really humbly to them and said, we would really like to do this song, but it has a singing, dancing dog in it. So how do you feel about that?
And they really, I love how his eyes show up here.
They were great sports about it.
Len's getting tossed around.
I mean, in most 3D productions, it's no big deal to have arms and legs, but with VeggieTales, whenever we do that, it kind of has to be for a good reason, because it adds so much complexity, and if it's not done well, it looks kind of tacked on, but I feel like in the end, Benny really successfully fits into our veggie world.
Yeah, he's fun. He's the second dog we've had, because we had a little poodle.
We had the poodle. Yeah, Larry's poodle.
We used the poodle a lot. Poodles that wasn't nearly as entertaining.
I don't know if Benny will ever show up again, but he certainly is fun. The problem with Benny from a world perspective is it just messes up the scale of everything, because we tend to think of our vegetables as being vegetable sized. So if Mr. Lent is the size of a gourd, then Benny is like the world's smallest dog. Mm-hmm. If Benny's life size, then Mr. Lent is the biggest gourd you've ever seen. So
all right, so here's Nicky. Let's talk about Nicholas a little bit.
Yeah, Nicholas.
We started down this road with, hey, let's get a new character for VeggieTales, something that we hadn't seen.
Not originally. Before. Originally, we started down the road of using Mr. Nezer for this role.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Yeah,
and as we're going through production, we had even done quite a bit of the storyboarding. And at some point, we all just kind of looked at each other and said, Nezer's not really probably the best choice to carry this. What ultimately had to be a charming and compassionate, entertaining character. And I love Nezer, but charming and compassionate are not really words you would think of to describe him.
And so we had been talking at length about, we really need a new guy character who could be like Larry's age, but just a different personality. And so Brian and myself both started just pounding down the road of what would it look like for a new character. And Brian ultimately came out of the woodshed with this design that is Nicky, as you see him, and just nailed it. It was just a wonderful, he's cool. And then we talked about his personality and what his voice would be like, and began the process of casting, which new voices for our cast. When you want to make them a recurring voice, they're gonna
and remember, if any of you listen to Big River Rescue, on that show I went through 3 different actors to finally get Clark Wayne the narrator.
Yeah.
And the third one was Phil, because it was so difficult to find the right voice to put in that character who fit in our world And coming off of that, and then we said we want a new character for Nikki, I'm like, I'm not doing that again.
Yeah.
I don't want to go through that process because we spent so much time and energy on it, and then just ended up with Phil, who did a fantastic job, but it just is. The point is, it's really hard.
Yeah. So ultimately where we've landed here on Nikki is awesome.
It is. So we had a fantastic casting director, Ned Lott, who we brought on specifically to help us find Nikki. And man, it took forever. It felt like I know it felt like that to Ned.
Yeah.
And ultimately found Gigi Abraham, who is a woman. That's right.
I
Nicholas
know.
is
I mentioned this to my
woman.
wife like just a couple days ago, and she was shocked. What, Nikki? What, lady? Huh?
After she saw the show.
She'd already heard Nikki's voice,
Oh, okay.
yeah. And I said, yeah, we got to do some recording with her. And she said, her? You mean him? I'm like, no, it's...
Well, and what's interesting is when I first heard Gigi's audition, I was like, I really liked her kid. So that was the other challenge with Nicholas, is we needed him to be a kid and a late teen. And so I loved Gigi as the kid voice, but I'm like, but she's a woman. There's no way she can pull off a late teen or a young adult. And so we went down some other routes, but then I kept coming back to Gigi, and so we decided to give her a final audition and to try pitching her voice down to see if we could make her older. And she actually won the part based on that audition.
Yeah.
Because we were convinced by pitching her voice down, we can make her older. And then in the end, we didn't even do that.
Yeah.
We just used her voice straight because she gave me such a perfect performance. And it's so charming that man, it turned out to be a great character, great design, great voice. He just came together. And so now, in retrospect, I'm glad we went
Slipping
down that
cookies
road.
to
But
kids
boy,
here.
was I worried.
It's interesting. So now we have two members of our cast. Junior, of course, voiced by Lisa Fisher, and now Nikki. And what's great about that is you can play young voices, and they can go
That little
for a
squeal
long
from
time.
the P Girl was Sarah Voorhees, who's a production coordinator at our recording studio.
yeah?
And we needed a female squeal, and I was like, Sarah, get in the booth.
Make a squeal. Perfect. Thank you.
She's a good sport.
This whole threat of him wanting to chase the daughters was really complicated
we
because
went round and
everybody
round.
knows, or many people know, the story of St. Nicholas, in which he rescues the daughters who don't have what they need to get married.
Called a dowry.
It's called a dowry. And we didn't want to go through all the effort of trying to explain a dowry to children. And so we said, how can we do this? And oh my gosh, we pitched so many different ways to do this.
So we went through. They were going to have to work for Gustav as basically as slaves, and then that
got weird and
got really, because he became kind of predatorial about trying to get these girls to work for him. The other problem is it just wasn't. It's like, why does he care so much? Like we were really struggling with what's our storytelling device here in the second act to make Gustav amplify his efforts to catch Nicholas.
Yep.
And at the same time had to create a reason for Nicholas to go into disguise.
Those are cute cards, by the way.
Thank you. So
Zoom in
we
on that.
just kind of went around and around, and then really late in the game, finally was like,
Finally
we were
landed
like,
on it, yeah.
you know what? Just Gustav makes a law. They break the rules, but the law was created to, and then the challenge there is you have to show that the authority is a corrupt authority. And I feel like,
sorry, I love that face.
I feel like it's hopefully comes across as obvious that Gustav is a corrupt authority who really has no real authority.
When you do another Larry Boy, you've got to pull these costumes out. They're just
that's funny. Well, just wait till you see the Wonder Woman.
Oh, he fell again. Oh man,
that makes me laugh. Every
Dust.
time. These songs right here, we got these 3 parody songs each night that Nicholas delivers gold, and man, they were fun to do. And we actually we had them in the show, and then we took them out because we didn't have we had different versions based on different songs that turned out to not be public domain. Public domain means that you can kind of do whatever you want to with a piece of intellectual property. And so I was like, okay, it doesn't matter. We'll just have Kurt write some music. And then like a week before we finished, Kurt was like, by the way, I'm running out of time. Can we put songs back in those spots so that I don't have to write new music? And so over the weekend, Mike and I kind of scrambled to write these new songs. And part of what motivated me too was that about 2 weeks before we finished, Chris said, by the way, you realize there's no songs in the second act in our musical.
Yeah, that's always a bad sign.
I was like, oh my gosh, because it just ever put that together, that
Yeah.
we kind of go for a whole act with no character singing songs.
And we love our veggie characters to sing songs. That's one of the staples.
It sure is.
This little routine here at the fish market, if you've ever been to a fish market like that where they're throwing fish and really active, having a good time, that was kind of just a little
Hey, who
touch
did
on
the
that.
voice of that father there?
I don't know. Some
Yes,
guy.
you do. That was you, Chris.
Some guy.
You did a good job.
Yeah, he was supposed to be older initially, so we kind of played him older, and now, of course, look at him. He's young and spry. But the story's taken
spry.
so many twists.
It really has.
I love his huge medallion, can I just say? Oh,
Yeah.
fish slapping.
Although I was thinking, actually, it was funny you say that. I was thinking about that today, that I wish we'd put a G instead of an M on it. So I guess it's M for mayor.
Yeah.
So this is the costume that just does it for me. And what's whenever he hops, I want you to notice there's like squeaking sounds.
Squeaking.
He literally squeaks as he hops around because his spandex is so tight. So it's so funny.
Here's our distraction guy.
Yeah.
So obviously Nicholas has stepped up his costuming. He's
he now
getting
looks
closer
like
and
Nicholas.
closer to a legend.
Indeed.
And
this bit here, like this is why I put Blunt in this role. I actually had to argue with Phil and Mike about that early on because we decided we wanted this kind of caretaker, servant, helper role as a sidekick to Nicholas. And I was like, it should be Lunt. And they said, no, because he needs to like communicate the message. And so it can't be Lunt because Lunt can't do that. And I'm like, no, it has to be Lunt. So we made it Lunt, and man, he just brings so much humor
He
to
does.
the role.
Phil is so fantastic. Look at how quickly they followed on. Oh, just missed him.
Didn't you fix that?
Oh, that's the fixed.
Oh, that's the fixed.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good.
There they go, off in the sunset. All right, now they're gonna have some fish sticks. Bah!
Get it? Fish
Fish
sticks?
sticks. Love it.
Indeed.
Quick joke. This is neat. I mean, what I love here, though it's all very fun and adventurous, is the determination of a fella who wants to do this thing of giving to others, and is determined to do it in secret, which is just really a really core part of who we know St. Nicholas to be. All right, here's our little Aladdin moment here. Ready?
What do you mean Aladdin moment?
Ready?
If he wants to succeed, he had
Eyes, Brian.
I don't remember that from Aladdin.
Oh yeah, at the beginning, in the sand thing, and the eyes
No.
come out of the sand.
I'm not with you.
Totally where that's going.
It's been a while.
Hey, there he is. Got a little Robin Hood.
There, now we've got it. Oh, and this snow coming up. I just love this shot where the snow appears. I'd love for there to be snow.
No, Larry, there's not gonna be any
Imagination.
It was a fun way to tell a story, to have Larry, like whenever he wanted to, be able to just
We talked
jerk it
initially.
around to his will. Well, and so what's fun about it here, though, is that it actually ends up serving a storytelling purpose.
Yeah.
That the snow is how Gustav is able to find Nicholas because they leave tracks in the snow, and so that pays off, I think, in a really fun way.
No logic here on dropping that into the burning hot fire from above, but
No, or even how that stocking
it's
sticks
red.
to the wall with no hook or nail.
here we go. Wait
This
for it.
gag right there, that is there solely so that later when the cart rolls through, there's something to serve as reins on the sheep
Yeah.
so that they get dragged along. Because I wanted this gag where they end up in this sleigh, basically.
You remember
being
we were
pulled by
shopping that
reindeer.
scene. I mean, we actually literally were moving that scene
Yeah, we
around
couldn't
the edit,
decide-
trying to find out where to put
Because
it.
it wasn't in the script, we needed to
Yeah,
add it
like,
in. And
kinda
so
forcing
we
it in.
have these boards that we just were moving around the
Up
whole
on the
second
rooftops.
act.
Click, click, click.
So that's totally so that later when the cart rolls through, it can get tangled up in those lights
Right,
so
right.
that the sheep get drug along.
Oh, she found that fast.
Yeah, the thing
We
that
gotta bust it.
burned in the fire. Hooray!
right under our noses. Spread out. Find
This poor guy, he just can't track down this Nicholas character for nothing.
Yeah.
All right,
Gustav ended
so
up-
here comes our big chase sequence. This was really fun to board and edit, and Todd Carter just did a fantastic job of providing a lot of energy, some great shots in here. Love all the snow prints they got into production. That makes it really fun. This little moment, love it. Looney Tunes.
Yeah, they actually had to build
homage.
2 different versions of the city because we designed the city and then we boarded this chase sequence and didn't really think about how it might play in this location that we designed. So our production partners actually had to look at the storyboards for the chase and build a whole new city, so to allow for some of these really specific shots that we asked for.
Yeah.
So there's.
And in case you've ever wondered, all of you great veggie fans out there, what would it look like to leave a veggie snow print? It's got a great representation. Oh, shoot. Not father. I love hopping off on the cup. Good job, Brian.
Yeah, that was
High five.
That was a very late
funny.
addition in the animation process.
Oh, skinny up the rope.
This is fun.
Lunt is very strong.
This with his invisible hands. This chase, it's funny. This chase just came together for me last night. Until last night when we were editing the music or the sound effects, I always just kind of felt like there was something missing. And then we got the final sound effects.
Bowling pins there.
That was
really
nice
fun.
touch.
Oh, there he is.
Oh, he's a snowman. And man,
when did this line come in?
Todd Carter.
This one?
It was his line.
Oh, it's a great line, Todd.
Would
So.
this be a bad time to talk about my Christmas list?
Why?
He's
Yes,
so enamored. I mean, think about it. He's in the cart with Saint Nicholas. I mean, of course he wants to talk about Christmas list. Boom.
This was
splash
this whole scene again. You just kind of take it to your production partner with your head bowed, with the utmost humbleness, and just say, "Could I please have a chase scene with 6 sheep and a cart and lots of snow?"
Seriously.
Where the snow, they have to drive through the snow and
pick up antlers up here.
Like, it's such a ridiculously.
Brian, what I love about this sequence,
scene.
you guys, I just can't tell you how much you just connected all kinds of dots that are very funny.
Yeah.
Where they got antlers, where people first picked up the idea that he'd fly with these reindeer. I mean, all this is just so inspired.
Well, you were
Here
part
goes.
of helping make all that. Love that.
Oh,
shot.
he says there he is, and that's
And
all,
the
of course.
music that Kurt made there, and it's funny. Kurt himself actually was saying when he scored that shot, he got chills. Like,
Yeah.
He gave himself chills, and he's like, "I never give myself chills."
of
But
course
man,
that's
there's something, and Kurt, like me, is a big Christmas fanatic.
Hear that, Bob?
It was an interesting personal process for
Oh,
me.
here we go. Sorry, one second.
Oh, that's for the fans.
That's for the fans.
You wanted me to take that out.
Well,
Here, it's for those of you who know that that's a homage to The Toy That Saved Christmas. And the thing is, you only know that if you've seen Toy That Saved Christmas, which I'm assuming a lot of you have, but a lot of you haven't.
If you haven't, go out and get it.
And
It's
the
a great
thing
show.
is, that's the wrong place in a show. Like at the very end of a show, after the big climactic action moment, it's the wrong place to make a joke that a lot of your audience won't get. There's
Yeah.
places you can do it. That's not the place.
That
to
was
do
my
it.
argument, but
I
here it
felt
is.
so strongly.
If you
that-
like it,
that if
please
you get it-
contact customer service and say, I loved that joke.
Well, no, you can,
Brian
you
will
can leave me a
feel
voicemail
redeemed.
just like you did on Wizard of Oz.
Yes, exactly. The
all
one
of
fan.
You, no, there was like 10 people who called me and said, "Yeah, I got the joke."
The 10 fans.
Thank you, 10 people. So I want to talk a little bit about my own kind of, I don't want to say emotional and spiritual process, but that's really what it was.
Tell me how that make you feel.
As we worked through this show, and it's the dumbest thing to say, but of course, I'm a huge fan of all the old Christmas specials. The Grinch and Charlie Brown and Rudolph and Frosty, and have fun every year sharing new ones with my kids and all that. But at the same time, I find as I'm getting older, Christmas is becoming simpler and more meaningful for me.
Mm-hmm.
And this show came at a time when I was really kind of grappling with all that. What does Christmas mean, and what does it mean that we have all this emotional connection to it that ultimately is fabricated by marketers and TV producers? None of that stuff is actually, for all the shows that are about the true meaning of Christmas, most of them aren't really about the true meaning of Christmas. And they're just kind of all this emotional trapping that's fun, and it's fun to play with, but it's not ultimately what it's all about.
Mm-hmm.
And also wrestling with kind of what I call the middle class Christmas. We have this idea of the Christmas is supposed to be this thing with these certain kinds of gifts and certain emotional experiences and all that, and it's like, well, that's all fine, but ultimately it's not really what it's about. So we struggled with that in the story process, because originally the emotional payoff at the end was just that Laura's dad had lost his job, and so Junior and the other kids all band together and buy Laura a bunch of Christmas presents. And originally I went along with that, and at some point I'm like, you know what? No, I'm not going to do that, because Christmas is about more than that. It's more than just buying someone presents who doesn't have it. It's about yeah, that can be part of it. Sure, there's nothing wrong with that. But I really wanted, and you and I both really wanted to create something more than that.
Yeah,
this.
I think that it's not about the wants of the holiday season, about the needs. And for me, the bigger part of the
it's
story...
and it's not about creating the right emotional experience.
No, and for me, it's the... Yeah, that's true. For me, it has a lot to do with what is going on in the hearts of these people. All the people that just left the church. Which, by the way, listen to Grandpa there. He's extremely funny in his little bits. But what is going through all those people who are willing to pour out and do a really neat thing for this family. And the truck and the packages is really the culmination of that. And, we watched It's a Wonderful Life a couple times getting into this because there were some really neat things we wanted to be able to try to capture as well. And hopefully we did that.
It's funny, what our two archetypes for this show were It's a Wonderful Life and Batman Begins.
Origin story and holiday.
And a holiday story.
Holiday story.
Well, and
that
the key
is
with
not
Wonderful
really
Life
about
is that the
holidays.
majority of Wonderful Life has nothing to do with Christmas.
Exactly. It just
And so
happens to be snowing for part of it.
That's why I pointed to it.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what? This is actually the first time I'm seeing this shot rendered.
This is the big money shot.
The big
man.
pullout. Oh, so I'm just going to enjoy this for a minute.
This is my first time to watch it with sound, so...
Well, then why'd you talk all through it?
I couldn't. I was distracted. You were talking.
So anyway, that was our goal, was to create something that satisfies the emotional desires that you're looking for when you sit down for a Christmas show, but then to also give you, not that it's going to change your life, but it may start a conversation. It may start an action that you might not do otherwise.
And it's our hope that we have created hopefully some messaging for you parents out there and for families to really talk about what are the core things around Christmas that are important. And
all the other stuff is okay, but
in this character of Saint Nicholas, what he did that I just think is the whole reason to study any great men of faith and of our history is what he does to inspire us to give to others and sacrificially
in the name of
with
Christ.
with no regard for our own praise. And that's just something that is, when you can get that into a child's understanding, they can change the world, literally,
That's true.
by their perspective. And so we hope that this story does that for you and for your families, and have really poured ourselves out to make this 45 minutes of hopefully an honest look at a great figure of faith, St. Nicholas.
Yeah.
And it's been a great journey, Ryan.
It's been a crazy ride.
Yeah, it's great to see it finally finished and headed out to
Almost.
our fans. Yeah, we got to get to the end of the
Still have
credits.
5 more shots.
But
Oh, boy.
great
And
job,
here we go,
Hoo-Hoo
Hoo-Hoo.
Studios.
Thank you,
Man.
everyone.
If you ever make it to New Zealand, fans, point you over to Hoo-Hoo. They're good people over there. They'll treat you right.
I'm just, I had to do these credits myself, which is something I haven't had to do in a long time, and it was fun because as I'm typing each person's name, all these, literally, probably 200 people, or maybe 100 people, whatever. How many people are in the credits? As I'm typing all their names, I just get to kind of be thankful for each one and for the part, some large, some small, that they all played in bringing this idea to life.
And one of those parts is obviously this fantastic song you're hearing here.
With Matthew
our
and
good
Amy.
friend Matthew West came in and we asked him to pitch on a song, and we gave him kind of the messaging. And
Yeah, we showed him the script and said,
Oh.
hey, could you write a song that maybe has something to do with this? And he came back and sang the song, and it just has taken on a life of its own.
Yeah.
Man, I love it.
Great
It's
to
fantastic.
have it
So,
be a part of our storytelling here.
thank you, Matthew and Amy and
Yeah,
Brown and
pleasure
and
to
everyone
have
else involved in the song. Well, we're almost to the end.
Yeah, and
I just want to say thank you again to all these people.
Yeah, and I want to mention here just Kurt.
We didn't
Kurt,
talk about the music
Kurt
much.
had just a great adventure in front of him in the
Really
pace
did.
of which he had to pull
He
this
has never
show
written
together.
a show in as short a time as he did this one.
Yeah, the nature of just production, it meant that he had to work very, very fast, and he just did it as Kurt always does, chin up, and just went after it.
So thank you, Kurt. We
thank
love you.
Great work, man.
Chris, it's been a fun ride. I
Hey,
appreciate all
likewise,
your
Brian.
help. And thank you, everyone who gave us this opportunity and everyone who's enjoyed experiencing the opportunity.
And we hope you all have a very Merry Christmas.
Or June 1st or whatever day it is you're
Whatever
watching
day this is, yeah. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
We'll see you.